Hello. The new week. And a lot of bullshit is happening. It's another day, another stream in fascist America. Welcome to whatever this is, an attempt at providing education, advocacy, and a little common sense in this digital wasteland. My name is Aubri Devashrayee. So, for Mondays, I usually talk about current events, which I will be doing today. And there is a lot of bullshit happening, as I mentioned previously. So I want to go over some headlines and the latest drama that's happening within the MAGA sphere that is very entertaining to be a bystander, an audience member of, with Tucker Carlson and Ben Shapiro and Megyn Kelly. I don't devote too much time to this because I don't let them into my cranium too often. But I do like to see them fight. We have to take our wins where we can get them, especially right now. So, I want to talk about these things, but in order to stop everything that's happening, we need to address having a global strike, meaning everyone around the world joining together to withhold our labor from the fascist, white supremacist, warmongering, Epstein, billionaire class elites who are killing us, who are sending us to concentration camps and prisons and starting wars. We're being used as cannon fodder to enrich their unending greed and appetite for power, that they will do whatever it takes to keep this industrial war machine going because they have people in the right positions to keep this going for a long time, to enrich themselves while they're cutting all of these regulations in order to have their other investments and corporations kill us in other ways. When are we going to say enough is enough? I realize that capitalism keeps us so that we have to keep paying bills, going to work, and making it so that we aren't subject to law enforcement and eviction and the trauma of being displaced. That's why they keep us so oppressed, is that we don't have as much time to organize, that we're too busy trying to work to pay our bills and meet our everyday needs, then we are organizing and trying to change the material conditions that we're in. But things are really bad. I'm not going to lie, things are really bad. Do we have to just go about our everyday lives pretending like we might not have a nuclear war be starting and the US and Israel are the aggressors, by the way? People, governments that have nukes, Russia as well, these imperialist aggressors who have no limit to their bloodthirst. And they won't stop unless we make them stop. They have to be made to stop. Which is why we have to halt the world economy and make it so that all of these markets come to a screeching halt so that they realize where their power comes from. Because we run this engine. And they wouldn't be in the positions that they're at without our existence. They are so eager to cut us out of the equation. We see with the rise in AI and robotics and the extreme wealth gaps and pay inequality that they are bent on destroying humanity and the planet. I think that's safe to say. I think we need to destroy AI centers because they are having a devastating effect on humanity, our sense of reality, what we can trust, eliminating jobs and human value and intelligence being used by our governments, destroying the environments that they are in when they build these fucking places. Usually on sacred ground, let's be honest, indigenous sacred ground, and then poisoning the people around them with Nazi Gestapo agents rounding people up in the streets, kidnapping them, trafficking them to concentration camps where they are dying in detainment, where they are being tortured. And these are the new death camps, okay? That's what's happening. When are we going to say no to that? It's like there have been more protests that have been happening lately, which I think is a really great thing because these ICE centers are popping up for a lot of warehouses. But it's not enough to just protest anymore. I mean, it's still important for them to see our displeasure, like the No Kings protest as well. Going to that and showing up to provide numbers to this resistance because that is important. The optics are important. But it is the money that we generate for these fuckers that they truly care about that we have to understand our power in generating and withhold it. Because that's the only thing, really, in my mind, that's going to stop them. Okay. Plug for a global strike. If you are interested, please fill out the form in the Twitch profile where you can submit a strike card and demands. If we are able to halt the world's economy, when we're able to halt the world's economy, what should we be asking for? In an ideal world, what would we put an end to? What would we advocate for and actually think could be a solution to the material conditions that people face? Just keep that in mind. Odds are the things that you experience in your life, the ills and issues that are systemic and societal, that other people experience these things as well. And we need to expand our horizons and imagination to think of a better world and demand it, because they aren't going to give it to us. Okay. That's my rant. It's just hard with all of this bullshit happening, understanding where our power comes from, knowing how we can stop it so that it just doesn't continue until humanity is destroyed. Because that's the trajectory that we're on. I don't feel like that's hyperbolic to say that that's the trajectory that we're on, but that's the trajectory that we're on. Okay. So I'll go over current events, world headlines, and then how we can be taking back our power in certain ways. So going over more information for a global strike, historical examples, and then get into the reading. We're reading Wuthering Heights, Chapter 15 in Volume 2. Okay. So I usually like to start off with a funny video. So I will do so. I was looking at this other thing up first. Okay. Just getting it ready. You will be shocked to know that this features Patti Harrison yet again. Surprise, surprise. And this is continuing the series Conversation Therapy. Can playing foosball make you cis? I love that.
That was a sour grape.
Nothing.
Yeah, again, this is prop food. This is not real fruit. I don't know why I have to tell my guests every
Sorry.
time not to eat. Lena, I swear to God, after this, you will be the final guest to die on this show. That's my promise to you.
Just try and kill me.
Hi, and welcome to Conversation Therapy with Patti Harrison. I'm Patti Harrison, and I'm here with one of my favorite people on this earth, Lena Einbinder.
Hello.
Lena is non-binary. They are a comedian, a performer, writer,
Einbinder's really
model.
killing it in the comedy space.
One time when I was modeling, I said that I was a poet. So that's online, and I can't get away from it.
This is not a safe space for poets. So what you been up to?
Fuck
What's been
your
going on?
poems.
I just have been working on the public access show that I work on a lot called The Special, and keep into my daily regimen of petting dogs while I'm away from my dog to not think about that I'm away from my dog at that moment.
So you're a dog person.
Yeah, that's what I identify as.
We'll go ahead and move on to our next segment.
That's their
A segment
identity.
that I named Tranecdotes.
Oh,
Tranecdotes.
cool.
Don't nod at it. So, dating. Do you have any good stories or bad stories about dating
I have
in
a
New York?
lot of bad stories. Anytime,
Good stories or bad stories, so just any type of story you have about dating, please tell the
we
class.
go out with somebody, I didn't expect them to understand like my gender or anything because I have long hair, and I tend to gravitate towards people who I want to look like more, which is like masculine people.
Yeah.
So they're always like, "Oh, sweet, a chick." Really, like only one person has like gotten it so far, and that's my current partner. They flat out asked me like, "What do you identify as?" Which is cool, and no one has ever done that.
Yeah.
He wears makeup, which I think is cute because I'm a boy who wears makeup, and I want to kiss a boy who wears makeup.
Yes.
But now I get to. On
Cute.
weekends.
On weekends.
It is
Only
the
on
horny.
weekends, by the way.
You can feel when
contractual.
someone perceives you as what you are as opposed to not. And they could be telling you one thing but doing another, and it's just something that you feel. And with him, I really feel like he sees me for the person that I am. How funny was that answer?
You know, that actually wasn't funny. It was actually poignant. And I don't have time for that shit here.
Have you ever had a good date in your life?
I have had a good date, but the bad
moaning
definitely
noise, too.
outweigh the good.
Yeah, that's where I'm at too.
When I first moved to New York, I was so excited, being from Ohio, that I was like, New York is the place where all the art boys are. People are more open, was my perception of it. And so I went on a date with this guy. One of the first things he told me was that he was okay with seeing me, a trans woman, because when he was very young, he fractured his penis in an ATV accident. What
You
made
have to
him
break your dick to date a trans woman?
well,
What?
that it made him introspective about his manhood. So
No. People say the craziest things sometimes. Why? Why, sir? No one needed to know that.
save the
Don't
date.
say
I'm marrying
that.
this man. What are some like red flags? What are some like no, no, no.
When people are like, okay, so how can you be trans if you aren't taking hormones or doing surgery? That shit makes me really upset. Someone asks you to dress a certain way, like for them, or when people are like, oh, so like RuPaul.
Right, because it's a lack of a nuance of understanding in terms of performative gender, but also I like to be told a lot to dress like an airline pilot, and I've yet to find someone who will do that for me.
You would look great with like a little box hat and a little wings pin.
A little box hat. Yeah,
Can you like
cute.
give me peanuts right now?
You wanna play some fucking foosball? This next segment is actually for any cis person who is looking to make the choice to transition into being a trans because you're bored, and then you can
Mostly.
be interviewed
Mostly
on a
if
lot
you're
of podcasts
bored,
about
that
your,
is why people
very
transition.
tragic coming out story, so that cis people can emotionally
This is a
masturbate
joke.
to it and then forget you forever.
By the way.
In this match, we will not be using a ball. We will be using this. This is a representation of your cisness. Pure,
dove?
innocent, secure, a bird. Is this what you want?
Yes.
You know, is this worth all the podcasts that you're gonna
Punish
get us
this
to
heterosexual dove.
do? Oh, okay.
Heterosexual dove. Excuse me.
I'm gonna score on myself because that's what you do if you're non-binary trans. You just constantly lose points. That's how you play foosball.
That's how you constantly lose points.
Now comes the hard part
True.
of the series, where I will
Occasionally
use
win
advanced
some,
technology
but,
that I have
you know,
designed
there are some
to
losses.
transition Lena back to their cis majesty. It is very important to be cis. It's the coolest thing to do. Are you ready? Do you need anything? Do you want San Pellegrino before we begin?
If it's my last San Pellegrino as a non-binary trans person, I will forego that luxury to emphasize the struggle that I am about to endure.
Incroyable. It's time to take you to the machine.
Heroic even.
Cis me, baby. Hit my face with the men until I'm straight.
Godspeed. No, don't lick it. No, stop making it a horny thing. No, I've lost control of the procedure.
Well, she's lost control again, folks.
You know, I really try my best every time.
So can we say that's a win for the trans community, or we're just gonna call that a draw?
I don't know
Trans
if it's a win,
committee.
but it's something. If you want, I'll stand at the end of this and you can just slide that right into my butthole. Here we go. Bye. Wow. What an amazing time I've had today with our special guest, Lena Einbinder.
Patty
Thank you
in her
so much
little
for being
minion
with us
outfit.
today.
Thank you for having me.
You can catch them performing around New York City if you're in the city. If you're not, you can check them out on the special Without Brett Davis, which is available online as a parting gift. Again,
Thank
it's
you.
not real.
Oh,
What the fuck are you doing?
I thought it was real.
That is a $500 piece of prop fruit.
I'm sorry.
It definitely looks real. Ew.
If you like this video, like and subscribe, and maybe
If you like this video, do it to this account because, seriously, TV is no longer a thing. Rest in peace, I guess. Okay, now that we have a little bit of lighthearted fun in our hearts, do we enter the abyss of current news? I guess let's get it out of the way. This is Democracy Now!
Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. In a social media post, President Trump said this morning he's instructed the Pentagon to postpone all airstrikes against Iranian power plants and energy infrastructure for a 5-day period, claiming on Truth Social that Iran and the U.S. have had, quote, very good and productive conversations regarding a complete and total resolution of our hostilities in the Middle East, unquote. This comes after Trump warned Saturday night he would obliterate.
Yeah, because we can believe anything that shithead says. Because we can believe anything this White House says, this administration says. Good for Iran, because it seems like they're continuing to do their own thing, and that's good. Do not be fooled by the U.S. having good faith intentions, because they really don't.
Iranian power plants if the Strait of Hormuz was not fully opened within 48 hours. Iran responded by warning it would destroy essential infrastructure, including water systems across the region, if Trump followed through on his threat. In Israel, nearly 200 people were injured by Iranian strikes on Dimona, home to Israel's main nuclear facility, and the nearby city of Arad Saturday after Israeli air defenses failed to intercept at least 2 ballistic missiles. Iranian state media said the missiles were fired in retaliation for an Israeli attack on an Iranian nuclear facility in Natanz. Iran also launched 2 4,000-kilometer range ballistic missiles at the joint U.S.-British military base on the Indian Ocean island of Diego Garcia Saturday. According to the Israeli military, it was the first time Iran had used long-range missiles in the conflict. The Israeli military said Monday it had begun strikes targeting infrastructure in Tehran. Iran, meanwhile, vowed to lay sea mines to block the entire...
So it looks like Bibi is alive, unfortunately. Is this footage current? I mean, our leaders of these machines are not going to change the end goal, which is just world domination and white supremacy and ethnic cleansing. That is what these people are after. And again, they won't stop unless we make them, which is why we have to have a world strike. But it would be nice to be rid of Netanyahu and Trump. It really would, because they're not good for the world. But them being gone would not change a whole lot, to be honest. Which is why we have to realize our collective power and act accordingly, rather than waiting for this to blow over, because that doesn't happen. We have to demand that this come to an end.
Gulf, if its coasts or islands are attacked. This comes as the International Energy Agency announced earlier this month it's releasing 400 million barrels of crude oil, the largest in its history, in order to stabilize global oil prices. On Sunday, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent tried to clarify President Trump's shifting messages on the war in an interview with NBC's Meet the Press.
Just to put a fine point on
I'm
this,
sure
though,
he
is
did.
the president in the process of winding down this war or escalating the conflict?
Again, they're not mutually exclusive. Sometimes
They're mutually exclusive. That's my Scott Bessent impression.
you have to escalate to de-escalate, Chris.
Saudi Arabia.
We have to escalate to de-escalate. Okay, Scott. You really look like you believe what you just said.
Ordered Iran's military attaché and 4 embassy staff members to leave the kingdom within 24 hours. The Saudi Foreign Ministry declared the 5 officials persona non grata, citing what it called repeated Iranian attacks on Saudi territory. The move follows an Iranian drone strike on the Red Sea port of Yanbu, Saudi Arabia's only remaining oil export outlet after Iran blocked the Strait of Hormuz. This comes as the Trump administration's advancing more than $23 billion in weapons sales to the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, and Jordan without congressional approval. in Lebanon. Israel struck a main bridge linking the south to the rest of Lebanon Sunday. The Israeli military's ordered its troops to destroy all crossings over the Litani River and step up the demolition of homes near the southern border. This comes as Lebanese healthcare workers are accusing Israel of deliberately targeting medical workers and facilities in southern Lebanon. Israel.
Sounds familiar. Where else have they been doing this? Anywhere that they attack, specifically when it is Palestinians?
Struck at least 128 medical facilities and ambulances across southern Lebanon, killing 40 healthcare workers, according to the Lebanese Health Ministry. Since Israel's war in Lebanon began March 2nd, more than 1 million people have been forced to flee their homes. Over 1,000 people have been killed in Israeli attacks. This is a displaced Lebanese man in the capital, Beirut.
Last night was difficult. Like every night we have here, as soon as it rains, the tents get flooded and the covers get soaked, and we have extreme struggle. Last week, there were 2 storms, and this storm continues for 10 days.
In Gaza, an Israeli airstrike on a police vehicle Sunday killed 3 Palestinians in the Nuseirat refugee camp. Another Palestinian was killed in a separate airstrike on northern Gaza. Meanwhile, in the occupied West Bank, Israeli settlers carried out a series of attacks, setting homes and vehicles on fire and wounding several Palestinians over the weekend. On Saturday, Israeli settlers carried out overnight attacks in at least 6 communities. On Sunday, at least 10 Palestinians were injured in attacks by Israeli settlers in 4 villages near Nablus, according to...
Again, we need a global strike to end this. Because even if this aggression against Iran somehow ends sometime soon, which I somehow doubt it will, there is still this violence occurring, going unchecked by any sort of forces that can hold these entities in power. We have to be the ones to do it, because the popularity of Israel has never been lower. And what they are doing in their genocide really has made the majority of the world upset. Because we realize that when this can happen to some people, it can happen to all of us. That they look at us like cannon fodder. Hello, Aliana. Yes, we have a say. This is our tax dollars at work for all of this illegal, unnecessary, unconscionable death. We have to put an end to it.
United Nations, Israeli forces and settlers have killed more than 1,000 Palestinians in the West Bank since October of 2023. In Britain, 4 ambulances belonging to a Jewish volunteer organization known as Hatzalah in London were torched early Monday in what British Prime Minister Keir Starmer condemned as a, quote, deeply shocking anti-Semitic arson attack, unquote. Security camera footage obtained by CNN shows 3 people wearing masks in all black approaching an ambulance belonging to the Hatzalah Northwest and setting the vehicle on fire. The northern suburb of Golders Green has a large Jewish community, home to several synagogues, dozens of Jewish schools, and other institutions. The flames caused an explosion that shattered windows in nearby buildings. No injuries were reported. In Sudan, at least 64 people were killed, including...
And when we have this unchecked violence by imperialist forces, we see a rise in hate crimes. Because of Israel's unending aggression, it is leading to more actual anti-Semitism, more harm to Jewish people around the world. Which is why you would think that these people who claim to care about anti-Semitism in our governments are actively contributing to the problem of anti-Semitism, where they refuse to hold Israel in check, hold Israel accountable, and this leads to way more hatred that grows. And we're seeing this happen with especially young right-wing people. Just over the weekend, I was talking to someone who said that he overheard a few people talking at work, and they were talking about like conspiracy theories, and one of them was that Hitler was not wrong, that what he did was good. That is entering into the mainstream. This Holocaust denial and support, even. This is extremely dangerous. It's like the genocide in Palestine is not only unconscionable, it is also perpetuating very real anti-Semitism that these white Christian nationalists are very interested in perpetuating. Hello, Tan. You subscribed? Thank you. Welcome, welcome. Did you end up getting those cats? Anyway. Yes, you need to share some photos in the Discord if you are interested, comfortable with that. What a shy bunch. The kittens, are they shy? Which channel should I use? Oh, maybe Joy is an active resistance. No pressure, though. I'm so excited for you. Congratulations. Yes. Anyway. What's happening right now is only going to get worse as we're seeing these wars and genocides continue. So we need to be calling out anti-Semitism when it happens, especially as we are seeing this conflation with the Epstein class of these anti-Semitic conspiracies. Back to Christian nationalists. Yeah. Yeah, back to these fuckers. We're seeing that people, like, this anti-Semitic theory of like how Jewish people own a large percentage of wealth and control the world and governments, where we're seeing with the Epstein files how people who are acting in behalf of the Israeli government are blackmailing people, but it's not just the Israeli government, the US government, the Russian government, and that there is also this overlap with just white nationalists and how they are the ones who hold a large proportion of the wealth in the country or the world. So we need to be calling this out as well, because that's something that I heard recently, and we have to stop. We have to correct these things when we hear them, but also one of the biggest things perpetuating anti-Semitism at this moment is the government of Israel. That's just the truth. Okay.
Over a dozen children in a strike on a hospital in East Darfur Friday. The World Health Organization said some 89 people were also injured and that the hospital will no longer operate. The paramilitary Rapid Support Forces blame the attack on Sudan's military, which the army denies. But the Associated Press reports 2 Sudanese military officials said the strike had originally targeted a police station in the region. The Director General of the World Health Organization, Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, condemned the frequent attacks on medical facilities since Sudan's war broke out nearly 3 years ago. He wrote on social media, quote, "Enough blood has been spilled. Healthcare should never be a target. Peace is the best medicine," unquote.
Hello.
In Cuba, authorities have
all of these claims of like, oh, we're helping this country, we're doing this. You know what would help people? You don't liberate them by bombing them. You liberate them by like not bombing them and actually liberating them. Like giving them the things that they need to be autonomous. But our governments, these oligarchs, the people who are controlling the world, the 1%, these capitalists are not interested in us having our autonomy. They're interested in controlling us and exploiting us. So, again, another reason why we need a world strike, so that we can show them where they get their power.
Restored electricity after more than 10 million people lost power to their homes and businesses Saturday following another collapse of Cuba's national power grid. It was the second time in a week and the third time this month Cuba suffered a major blackout as the Trump administration's oil blockade worsens Cuba's humanitarian crisis. Critics have condemned the blockade as economic warfare. This is Havana resident Leonie Alberto, who's been forced to cook with firewood during the blackouts.
Yeah. Economic warfare. This is all man-made. This is imperialist aggression once again, harming innocent people just to flex their insecure, shitty, militaristic muscles. That's what's happening. That there is this visualization of being against communism and Marco Rubio being able to fulfill his wet dream of overtaking Cuba. It's just so embarrassing to be fascist in addition to just wildly cruel. It's so deeply embarrassing to just be violent with no good reason. Just violent for violence sake, for wanting to take over the world and resources, extract resources from the land as much as possible, and do it in the most harmful ways as well. The US is falling, the empire is falling, and that's good. I read the other day that when Rome fell, that the general populace got taller because they weren't as oppressed. So when the US falls, if it doesn't if I'm still around for that, I don't know, that's ominous. I look forward to growing a little bit because this is falling empire shit, empire in decline.
Life doesn't change. Ultimately, we're stuck in the same rut. We aren't going to move forward. We're just going to stay right here at a standstill. Twice a week, cooking with firewood. It's absolute madness. There's no other way around it. It's just the hand we've been dealt. A solution is unlikely. We've been stuck in the same situation for 60 years. It is not going to change.
Meanwhile, hundreds of delegates from 33 countries and 120 organizations have arrived in Cuba aboard ships carrying humanitarian goods from Mexico. The Nuestra America Flotilla brought the food, medicine, solar panels, and other supplies as a direct challenge to the U.S. embargo of Cuba. Here in New York, a pilot and co-pilot were killed while 40 passengers and crew were injured late Sunday when an Air Canada Express plane collided while landing with a fire truck at LaGuardia Airport. It's the latest in a series of airline disasters under President Trump's second term, including a January 2025 collision near Ronald Reagan National Airport that killed...
Yeah. Airplanes just falling out of the sky. The airports have never been so congested and miserable and dangerous and discriminatory as they have been now. And after 9/11, that was very intense. What's happening now is really unconscionable. How there is just rampant profiling and getting into the US. They divide people with green cards versus citizens in order to discriminate against people with green cards. That hadn't happened before until this Trump regime. That There are TSA officers just asking people where they're going, not even looking at their identification if they're white specifically, but recording people and asking for extensive identification if they're brown, especially if they're from one of these countries that the US is having a ban for. It just is, again, falling empire shit, where these people who are destroying the world, the 1% Epstein class, are the ones who are cutting all of these regulations, cutting the funding for things, making it so that it's necessary to have a government shutdown right now to resist ICE. That they, when they're going unchecked, don't care about efficiency, despite them claiming that they care a lot about cutting waste and being efficient. They care about as much exploitation as possible and squeezing people dry as humanly possible to get as much money out of them.
7 people. Sunday's disaster prompted LaGuardia to shut down until Monday afternoon, at least until 2 p.m. Eastern. More than 400 flights have been canceled. Those disruptions added to travel chaos tied to the partial government shutdown affecting the Department of Homeland Security, which has forced tens of thousands of Transportation Security Administration workers, TSA workers, to go without pay, leading to resignations and high rates of sick leave. On Sunday, President Trump's...
Yeah, he said that they're going to have ICE go to the airports. We thought that the airports were bad before. This is a very scary moment that we are going to have ICE people who are not trained, who are joining these forces specifically to be discriminatory and cruel and violent. What kind of benefit will they add to this space, especially in already very high stress environment? Nothing good can come of that.
Border czar Tom Homan confirmed plans to deploy ICE agents, Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents, at 14 airports to ease, he said, long security lines. The move comes as Senate Republicans Saturday blocked a Democratic bill seeking to pay TSA workers during the partial shutdown while negotiations to fund DHS continue. In Paterson, New Jersey, city leaders joined family and friends Sunday as they welcomed Palestinian activist Laka Cordia home after more than a year in a Texas ICE jail. Cordia was arrested during the 2024 Gaza solidarity.
Oh my God, she has been in there for so long. I didn't know that she got out. Fierce. She was in there for such a long time.
Protests at Columbia University on charges that were later dropped. Soon after, she was detained by ICE during a routine immigration check-in in New Jersey. While in custody, Cordia was hospitalized following a seizure. Her legal team said her legs were chained to her bed and she was denied access to her lawyer or family. Laka Cordia spoke to supporters at Paterson City Hall.
It's been a long year and tough year in ICE dungeons. But
call them what they are.
Finally
tell it
free,
like it is.
Alhamdulillah. But still, my battle's not done yet. My battle to gain my freedom's done. It's not finished over yet. This is just the first step.
A federal judge has blocked the Pentagon's press policy, requiring media outlets to pledge not to gather information unless Pentagon officials formally authorize its release. On Friday,
just openly hostile to freedom of the press. That has been a major theme with Trump and his years of politicking and governing, but it is especially so now, where we're seeing capitulation more than we ever have, and it is truly embarrassing. Once again, it is so deeply embarrassing to be fascist. It means that you don't have the kind of confidence and self-assurance to stand on your own, that you have to stand on people, and that's a weak little thing to do. Just saying.
U.S. District Judge Paul Friedman in Washington, D.C., sided with the New York Times, which challenged the policy. Judge Friedman wrote, quote, "Those who drafted the First Amendment believe the nation's security requires a free press and an informed people, and that such security is endangered by governmental suppression of political speech. That principle has preserved the nation's security for almost 250 years. It must not be abandoned now," he said. In more media news, attorneys general from 8 states have asked a federal judge to halt a $3.5 billion merger between Nexstar Media Group and Tegna, 2 of the largest local broadcast station owners in the U.S. The Trump administration approved the merger Thursday after the FCC waived rules limiting any company from owning stations that, taken together, reach more than 39% of U.S. households. The merger was approved after Nexstar aligned itself with the Trump administration by temporarily pulling Jimmy Kimmel Live off the air across its 28 ABC affiliates after FCC Chair Brendan Carr threatened to revoke the licenses of broadcasters airing Kimmel. Former FBI Director Robert Mueller has died at the age of 81. He'd led the Bureau for 12 years under Presidents George W. Bush and Barack Obama. In 2017, Mueller was named special prosecutor investigation of allegations that Russia conspired to influence the outcome of the 2016 election.
Welcome, Night
That
Nila.
prompted
Good to
the
see
wrath
you.
of President Trump, who called the investigation a witch hunt, a hoax, and a treasonous attack, unquote. On Saturday, Trump celebrated
No
Mueller's
worries. Do
death,
what you need to do.
writing on his social media platform, quote, "Good. I'm glad he's dead. He can no longer hurt innocent people," Trump wrote.
That is a crazy thing for anyone to be saying. Good, I'm glad he's dead, but especially the President of the United States saying that about someone who was previously in the government. I mean, there are plenty of people that I could probably say that about, but like, he's the president. You can't say things like that. I realize that with the perspective of everything that's going on right now, that this is probably a minimal thing, but we can't normalize how we have normalized this kind of language. It is not appropriate. We just have to call it out.
In Slovenia, official results show ruling Liberals and opposition right-wing candidates in a near tie after Sunday's parliamentary vote. None of the main parties looked likely to secure a majority in the 90-member parliament. The Slovenian Prime Minister, Robert Golob, of the center-left Freedom Movement, warned Slovenia's democracy and sovereignty cannot be taken for granted. The opposition figure and former Slovenian Prime Minister Janez Janša, who leads the conservative Slovenian Democratic Party, faced controversy in recent months after he reportedly met with the Israeli spy firm Black Cube, prompting allegations of election interference. Meanwhile, in France, left-wing parties and allies held on to power in Paris, Marseille, Lyon, and Lille as local elections were held Sunday. Socialist Emmanuel Grégoire was elected as the mayor of Paris.
Same. Having dinner chicken. Dinner. Nice. Oh my god, Tan, I just saw the picture. They are so cute. This is reason to join the Discord. My iPad kids. Mine. Those are mine. So cute. On the Matt Ghibli 10.5 year old. Aww. That seems a bit of a demon. Gamora, who's also 10.5. Oh my god. I love them. Black cats are the best. If you are interested in seeing some very cute cats, you can join the Discord. You need to let me know how they're acclimating. How do you feel like they're getting used to everything?
Meanwhile, the far-right national rally made some gains in smaller towns in France's rural areas. France is holding presidential elections next year. And in Chile, thousands of people took to the streets of Santiago Sunday to protest incoming President Jose Antonio Cast's environmental rollback since taking office earlier this month. Cast's government halted over 40 environmental protections that had been drafted during the previous administration of leftist Gabriel Boric. Protesters marched to La Moneda, Chile's presidential palace, to mark World Water Day.
That's cool.
I think we
You
can
see that anti-fascism on the guitar?
continue
loved
living
that.
under a government that believes everything contrary to business and industry interests is an ideology. So I think we need to take to the streets, demonstrate, and fight for environmental rights, animal rights, and people's rights.
Cast is the most right-wing
Fierce.
president elected in Chile since the U.S.-backed Pinochet military dictatorship. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman in New York with Democracy Now!'s Juan Gonzalez, not in Chicago today, but right next to me here in New York. It's wonderful to be sitting next to you, Juan.
Yes, Amy, and it's been now 6 years since I walked in the doors of our studio here, since before the COVID pandemic. It's great to see everyone in person, in the flesh, rather than just over the internet or by phone. So it's great to be here.
Thanks for watching Democracy Now!
Wow.
On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel.
Back in the office. Perks of being back in. No, I'm not going to espouse that. People shouldn't have to go back to work. We shouldn't have to work at all. We shouldn't have to work with the amount of productivity that we have given to these fucking billionaires. We deserve something. How about we make them work? How about we make a reality TV show where we put them on all these like survival activities and they have to fight each other? I would watch that. Just saying. Okay. So, yes, please. Hello, welcome. Yeah, I feel like they would all just resort to like the dirtiest tricks. Okay. So, continuing with the latest in news, this is Francesa Albanese, who is talking to the UN. She is a reporter on human rights, and she is giving a speech that I wanted to watch. She has been very outspoken against the genocide that is happening against Palestinians, and has been extremely courageous in the way that she's been speaking out, calling it a genocide, one of the very first people to call it a genocide, and to be sanctioned by countries, that she is not allowed in certain places because of how outspoken she's been.
Excellencies, distinguished participants, I declare open Agenda Item 7 entitled Human Rights Situation in Palestine and Other Occupied Arab Territories. We will now proceed with the interactive dialogue with the Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights in the Palestinian territory occupied since 1967. Let me welcome the mandate holder, Ms.
I think I'm going to
Francesa
make another
Albanese.
bracelet while we watch
Welcome, madam.
this.
The list of speakers will close in 15 minutes. And I now give the floor to Ms. Albanese to present her report. Madam, you have the floor.
Terima kasih banyak Yang Mulia Duta Besar. Excellencies, I stand before you today with a deep sense of injustice and determination. Injustice because I have served this council with rigor and in good faith, and for doing so, I have faced relentless
think I'm gonna make
personal
one.
threats, insults, and reprisals.
Yeah, she's talking about everything that she's gone through for her advocacy. I think I'm gonna make a bracelet with the intersex colors, the intersex flag. This yellow, like this warm, buttery yellow, and then that like royal purple.
Determination, because in spite of all this, I remain steadfast in my mission to bear witness, to speak the truth, and to reject complicity in this time of unremitting criminality. Today I present the findings of my 8th report, the 5th documenting the ongoing genocide against the Palestinian people. Its findings highlight a hallmark of this genocide, Israel's widespread and systematic use of torture, alongside the creation of a torturous environment against Palestinians. I unequivocally condemn the torture committed by all actors, including also by Palestinian armed groups on and after 7th of October 2023. However, this report focuses on the use of torture in the context of the ongoing genocide, thus on the actions by Israel as the occupying power, as my mandate demands. Between October 2023 and January 2026, Israeli forces arrested more than 18,500 Palestinians, including children, especially if they were doctors, journalists, or humanitarians. Nearly 100 of them died in custody. 4,000 remain forcibly disappeared. Thousands detained without charge, held in inhuman conditions, beaten, shackled, sexually abused, denied medical care, starved, raped. Israel has effectively been given a license to torture Palestinians because most of your government, your ministers have allowed it. It is thanks to the courage of torture survivors and the Palestinians and Israeli NGOs who helped document their inferno if the truth has today reached this room. Hence, I have decided to lend my voice to them, to the survivors. Quote, on the 4th day in prison, an Israeli soldier threw food on the floor, which was only Lebanese, yelling, "Eat off the ground, you Hamas horse, just like animals," end of quote. Quote, the assaults were violent with batons and boots, leaving prisoners bleeding on the ground. They would beat prisoners, force them to insult each other, and even howl like animals, end of quote. Quote, they unleashed police dogs on us again, allowing them to tear into our flesh. One dog attacked a fellow detainee and started mauling his genitals. He bled to death in my arms.
Jesus
a doctor
Christ.
shielded in a cage examined him from a distance and said, "Throw him outside," end of quote. Quote, one of the soldiers raped me by violently inserting a wooden stick into my anus. After about a minute, he removed it and inserted it again more forcefully, while I screamed loudly. Then he forced me to open my mouth and lick the stick, end of quote. Quote,
oh my God.
They put me on a metal table, pressed my chest and head against it, cuffed my hands to the end of the bed, and pulled my legs apart forcefully. I felt a penis penetrating my anus and a man raping me. I started screaming, and they beat me on my back and head while I was blindfolded. I felt the man who was raping me ejaculate inside my anus. I kept screaming and being beaten, and I could hear a camera, so I believed they were filming me. I cannot describe what I felt. I wished for death.
The things that human beings are capable of, that the IDF is capable of, is doing currently, that the US military also does, is just unconscionable. And I know it's obviously way more distressing. There's not even a comparison to experience these things than it is to hear about them. But it just is. Yeah.
Every moment. End of quote. In Israel, authorities openly boast about the sadistic treatment inflicted on Palestinian detainees, while journalists and other civilians have been granted access to witness and even film their humiliation. Officials caught on camera sodomizing a Palestinian detainee with a knife are publicly celebrated. The criminal charges against them were recently dropped. And my report also shows that torture extends far beyond the prison walls in what can only be described as a torturous environment imposed by Israel across the entire occupied Palestinian territory. The continuous decades-long destruction of homes, hospitals, schools, and infrastructure, combined with forced displacement, starvation, mass bombing, pervasive surveillance, and arbitrary detention, has transformed Palestinian life into a continuum of physical and mental suffering. Quote, "Our brains can't process it anymore," said, end of quote, said a Gaza resident, quote, "The dead bodies, the explosion, it's too much. We're like the Walking Dead. Aid is scarce. The constant buzz of the drone is unbearable. You don't understand. It eats at my bones," end of quote. The philosopher Jean Améry, himself a survivor of torture during the Holocaust, once wrote, quote, "Whoever had succumbed to torture can no longer feel at home in the world," end of quote. Indeed, torture does to the individual what genocide does to a group as such. It destroys the conditions that make life meaningful, stripping away human dignity, leaving empty shells of being where humanity once stood. The Palestinian people today, whether in detention, under bombardment in Gaza, terrorized by armed criminals in uniform, or settler squads in the West Bank and East Jerusalem, are enduring the pain of such intentional destruction, including those in the diaspora. This reality cannot be understood outside its historical context. From the earliest years of the State of Israel, depriving Palestinians of all their rights and freedoms has been a central instrument of Israel's domination, sustained by laws,
everything going on in the world is very
of dehumanizing rhetoric against the Palestinians.
And a lot.
Since October 2023,
which is why I think we need a world strike.
Become state policy, sustained by a torturous culture that is socially produced,
it helps
politically
to
defended, and publicly normalized.
Actually talk about
the proposed bill on the death penalty for Palestinian detainees marks yet another dangerous escalation. Have therefore recommended that those responsible, including senior officials such as Itamar Ben-Gvir, Bezalel Smotrich, and Israel Katz, be investigated and, where warranted, that arrest warrants be issued. Excellencies, the testimonies that I and many others are documenting are not just tragic stories of suffering. They are evidence of atrocity crimes targeting the totality of the Palestinian people, across the totality of the occupied Palestinian land, through a totality of criminal conduct. Hence, I concluded that genocide has become the ultimate form of torture. Continuous, generational, collective. The way you respond to this abomination will be a test of our collective legal and moral responsibility. International law is unambiguous. Torture is absolutely prohibited in all circumstances, and so is genocide. Under both the Torture and the Genocide Conventions, all parties have the obligation to prevent, stop, and punish these crimes. The choice before you is stark. Either the prohibition of genocide and torture remains a binding legal norm. For it, Israel's leaders must be held accountable together with those who stand behind them, or it will stand exposed as an empty promise. And together with the millions who still believe in the universality of human rights, I say to you again, disregard for international law will not stop in Palestine. It is already unfolding from Lebanon to Iran, across the Gulf countries, and in Venezuela. And if left unchecked...
Exactly. this kind of unchecked violence will not stay where people think it will. That it is naive to assume that having imperialist aggression in the world is not going to have blowback and also create very poor conditions for most people. That when we are creating these hierarchies of human dignity, that everyone loses, even the people who are at the top, that they experience worse material conditions and quality of life. Not like they care, because they get their sense of self and confidence, identity out of feeling like they're superior to people, which is like extremely lame. Like, have some sort of self-assurance rather than feeling like you have to demonize other people. Like, that's such an embarrassing thing to be doing. You have one question. Yes. What is your question? While you're typing that, I'm going to keep playing this.
It will spread far beyond. What is lost in Palestine will be lost to us all. Thank you.
Okay, that was way closer to the end than I thought. Anyway. Like I've said before, we need a strike as a working class across the globe to end all of this needless violence. What is the difference between a democratic country attacking another and a non-democratic country attacking another? I think it depends on who is being viewed as non-democratic. Because, like, if we're talking about what's happening in Iran, like, it is, many people claim that their society is not democratic. It is not as equal as what it should be and what people would like it to be. But so is the system that we have in the US as well, where there are many non-democratic things about our government. And what's the point in being viewed as a democratic government if you are constantly bombing people without any sort of reason? I know a lot of people have thought that the internal strife that was happening in Iran, that was a reason for the US to come in and strike these civilian targets, but there really isn't an excuse for imperialist violence. It is to essentially bully people into submission and establish dominance. And it is such an idiotic way to do this. It's such a harmful way to do this, but that's how fascists work. And they won't stop until we make them stop, which, again, is why we need a global strike. Okay. So apparently there has been this infighting happening among the MAGA sphere. So there's this video by Zateo that Krystal Ball from Breaking Points is on, and I wanted to play this. Do you feel like I answered your question, Night and Love? Also, how have you been?
Podcast wars going on.
We deserve this.
Was there a vote in the US to attack? Did a vote was supposed to happen. Yeah. So it should only, so it's in the US Constitution to go to war only if Congress chooses to. Can we slowly strike Trump in the balls? I know, wouldn't that be nice? Except he doesn't have any, so there would be nothing to strike. Yeah, so normally Congress is the only body that can declare war. So what's happening is illegal based off of like the US Constitution as well as international law. And now Trump is wanting NATO to come in and stop all of this or help out with the Strait of Hormuz where all of this where all of the oil is caught up. And this is one of the few avenues that Iran has in resisting what is happening so that they actually have a sense of leverage. And NATO has no reason to get involved because the US is actively the aggressor. Normally, NATO could step in if, like, the US was attacked without reason. And it's the US that is causing the issues and then is like, can you come help me? It's like, no, bitch. Like, you caused this problem. And we all just have to pretend like everything's normal. Now imagine those Trump orange cheese balls. Oh, that's probably, if he does have balls, which I highly doubt it, that's what they are. Yikes.
Mehdi, we deserve this.
Ben Shapiro is the founder, editor-in-chief, whatever you want to call it, emeritus of Daily Wire. Michael Knowles is technically his employee.
Right.
And Michael is saying, I'm not going to say what you want me to say because I'm scared.
Mark Levin got accused of having a micro penis, and his response was to run to daddy and be like, please tell them I don't. The relationship between the left and Tucker is very complicated because you see the interview with Ted Cruz and you're like, thank you. Yeah. Of course, many of his views are disgusting and abhorrent.
Obviously, this war would not happen without Benjamin Netanyahu, but Trump is also a key player. Are you surprised with how anti-war and anti-Israel American public opinion has become?
Shocking. I mean, it's shocking. The Democratic base is not putting up with this crap anymore. They're disgusted with Chuck Schumer. They're disgusted with Democratic leadership. AIPAC did not want their name on the ads. Yep. They know.
What is it with podcasts? And I guess this could go with YouTubers as well, but like the wood paneling. There's always wood paneling in the room. I don't know if this is to hide like soundproofing, or if it's part of the soundproofing, or if people are just making it an aesthetic choice. But have you all noticed this as well? Anyway.
Completely toxic.
I'm Mehdi Hassan.
And I'm Krystal Ball.
And we're not kidding. The flagship Zateo podcast and an excellent guest today. Krystal, how are you?
I'm doing well. It's nice to see you.
Krystal doesn't need any introduction because all of you know her as hugely popular commentator, journalist, co-host of the insanely popular Breaking Point YouTube show, which has over 1.9 million subscribers last time we checked. We're trying to catch you. We're trying.
Flirting with 2 million here,
we're
guys.
trying.
No big deal.
We're behind you. You're a really good pace setter. You said
Breaking Points, it has her and Sagar Bot on it. And Sagar is deeply fascist, in my opinion. So I just have to call him out. Sagar, being from a Brahmin family where you are able to benefit from proximity to class, caste privilege, and also historical civil rights activism done specifically by Black, queer, trans people, and brown people, that you have a lot to be thinking about, and owing to all of these various groups, you're able to exist in the US. So you should learn some manners and learn a little bit more about this culture that you come from, that gender diversity is part of it, and that you need to be listening more in general rather than just talking out of your ass like you normally do. That's my message for Sagarbot. Oh, the wood paneling, it's part of soundproofing, but it's also woody and cozier than a white wall. Easily allows you to add plants. True. That is true. Yeah, and it can go with a lot of things, like these neutrals. It's a nice look, very mid-century modern, very Scandinavian. But yeah, it probably has all of these purposes.
Examples. And you guys just won an iHeart Podcast Award for Best Political Podcast. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. We had totally written that off, had zero expectation of winning. You know, originally we thought it was like a fan vote thing. So we were telling our audience like, oh, you know, vote for us. And they were like, we literally can't. We went to the website and we tried. So when we realized it would be just like chosen by whoever, we didn't think we had any shots. So it was kind of cool. It's like the first award that we won as a show. So.
Much deserved recognition.
Thank you.
If you're not watching Breaking Points, you should be. Tell our viewers, what is the premise of Breaking Points?
That is actually a really great question. The premise of Breaking Points is news, but from a populist left and populist right perspective, an honest perspective, but with people who have different views that don't always align. There are some places where we do align. So, for example, with regard to the Iran war, you know, Sagar, myself, Emily, Ryan, all of us are very adamantly opposed. And we, you know, we wear our own political views very clearly, but we also are very committed to the truth, to breaking through, you know, typical media propaganda, et cetera. So that's the idea.
Propaganda is a good word for right now. Funnily enough, I was thinking about this when I was looking at your career and just preparing for the show today. It's like both of us, here we are.
I'm going to step out for a sec, but I'll be right back.
Living at large in independent
MS
media world.
Now refugees.
MS Now. Well, it wasn't MS Now, thankfully, when we were there.
Yeah.
Ridiculous name.
I mean, it's, you know, I don't know.
It is a ridiculous name.
For
me, thing that ever happened to me.
I always say Miss Now, going to from MSNBC. MS Now, Miss Now. It's not Miss Now, wasn't Miss Then, and is not Miss Will Be. Miss Never, perhaps. Anyway.
Happened career-wise, best thing that ever happened.
Yes, career-wise. At the time, I've said this openly that I was very upset when they cancelled my shows. Obviously, who wouldn't be? But looking back, it was we're in a much. I mean, imagine not being able to do what we do now in this moment in our history with what's happening at home and abroad.
Oh my gosh!
Without our platforms
and the limitations just inherent to the format. Also, just these like a little short. Okay, you get 5 minutes, you get 7 minutes. You got to go to break. Wrap. Like. Just those limitations of the format before you even get into the corporate structure and all the pressures that come from that. I mean, it really is not adequate to be able to cover the moment that we're living in. So yeah, every day I'm grateful that they canceled me, even though at the time I was very upset. I was deeply depressed, et cetera.
Yeah, same.
It
was
a
blow, but now I think, thank God, thank you very much.
And it's funny, I mean, I get a little bit of pleasure out of seeing some of the people who are still there trying to do what we do, like launching their podcasts and trying to carve out theirs separately.
100% that they're going down that road.
Yeah.
Interestingly, the former head of MSNBC, my former boss, Rashida Jones, has now just taken a job as CEO of Peers Uncensored, which is hilarious. Like how's that for full circle? From going to running a cable channel to now seeing where the future is and being head of a YouTube company.
Yeah.
Which I think is fascinating. It's funny, the timings you mentioned. I like to do tough interviews, as you know. I love to kind of hold people to account and kind of not move on and repeat the questions. Hard to do that when you've got producers saying, got to go to a break.
Yes.
I remember when I interviewed Congressman Dan Crenshaw, the one Republican congressman I got to come on my show, and we went for like half an hour without a break on MS, which was unheard of. And I got permission beforehand to say, we need to drop ad breaks. I can't be stopping for an ad break in the middle of like some tense back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to worry about that on YouTube.
Right.
And
exactly.
You guys have used the format really well. I do want to play a clip. I want to start off with a really good clip. My favorite Breaking Points clip is you versus Senator Alyssa Slotkin of Michigan. Let's play the clip and then we've got to talk about this.
But you're a United States Senator. Mm-hmm. Like you're not the president, but you have power. So what are you going to do? Because so far what we've seen, I mean, you voted for some of the aid that's been used to massacre children and innocents. You have backed Israel, as far as I can tell, from your voting record at almost every turn. Are you going to join
give
Senator
her a hard
Angus
time.
King, Senator Bernie Sanders in saying no more aid to this country that is committing war crimes against innocent civilians?
I think the first thing, if you're asking about what to do with power, and I would offer that right now Democrats own nothing in Washington. So
don't play powerless with me. You're a United States Senator. There are things you can do. Does it eat you up? Does it eat you up? Do you think, what more could I do? Do you regret any of your votes? Do you regret
let me tell
any
you what
sort
I
of
was working on this
complicity?
morning.
That is a United States Senator and former CIA person being held to account by Krystal Ball. When I first saw that clip, two things.
Do you think someone in the CIA who has worked in the CIA is really going to be sympathetic to the plight of Palestinians? No. But to Krystal's point, it's important to have on record holding these people accountable because they, for the most part, really only answer to their donors and intentionally do not interact with their constituents because they don't want to hear anything that they don't want to because they're corrupt. I will say it once again, but U.S. ads is killing U.S. television, radio. There are too many ad breaks. No, I agree. I think it's indicative of this larger problem of the U.S. just having complete, unchecked corporate greed that is taking over every single facet of daily life, but especially entertainment. That doesn't help with attention span being crushed more and more. No, it is true. And really, it just comes down to rampant capitalism that has no restraints on it, especially these days, where all of these regulations are being slashed. So corporate interest and consumer exploitation are at all-time highs. Yay for us! We have money for war, but never money for actually providing the things that people need. Woo, the American dream, baby.
I thought to myself, has any senator, there are 100
that was
members
me
of
being
the Senate,
sarcastic.
50 Democrats roughly, give or take, have any of them ever been asked a question about funding, quote, massacres, as you put it quite bluntly to her? No is the answer. What an indictment of our mainstream media. And I think I texted you after that event saying, number one, amazing interview. I was in awe of that interview. And number two, how did you get her to come on the show and answer those questions?
I'm still asking myself this question because we didn't reach out to her. She reached out to us.
Which is itself quite interesting.
What?
A reflection on the state of
Interesting.
Well, and I actually asked her that question in the interview. I was like, why are you here? Because it was confusing to me. And as in my preparation for that interview and what I tried to do, you know, as I'm preparing for something that I know will be difficult or contentious, is I really try to think about what is the heart of the thing that is the contention here? Like, what are the things people are going to want to know? What are they going to be asking themselves? And one of the questions was that one, like, why are you here when you know that where we are is very different from where
What's the answer to that question, Krystal? Why was she there?
I think that what happened, this is basically what she told us, is that she realized I need to go on podcasts,
yes,
right?
As many Democrats have since the Kamala catastrophe.
Exactly. Like, this is the thing now. I need to do podcasts. And so her staff, a lot of staff on Capitol Hill watch our show. I'm sure they watch your show too. And are fans of the show. And so they probably came to her with like breaking points.
And now they're fired.
And
yeah,
sorry,
probably, honestly.
My apologies. But I think they probably presented it to her as like, it's bipartisan. And so she's thinking like, oh, Morning Joe, like centristy.
But Saga didn't give her cover.
No, Saga gave her no cover. And so I don't know if she didn't watch the show. I don't know if she wasn't aware of our perspective. I actually think she was aware coming in that it would be a tough interview for her, but she has a lot of confidence in her own ability.
She's very ambitious
to spin things.
I mean, I respect her for coming on the show. I think I said that at the time on social media that a lot of senators wouldn't come anywhere near it, even if their staff begged them to do a podcast. The vast majority don't do podcasts. We often forget. We see the Ro Khannas of this world and even the Gavin Newsoms doing a lot of media, and we forget that that's an aberration. Most Democrats, the vast majority of House and Senate Democrats, just keep their heads down.
Yeah.
Most people just don't even know who their representatives are. That's intentional.
You know that Hassan
they don't
want to
be held accountable.
Calling on Gavin Newsom to do his show.
So
Gavin's done a lot of shows. If you're watching Gavin Newsom, we all would love to have a chat. We know you're the front runner, and we would like to have a chat. Indeed. Do you think podcasts are going to play a massive role in 28? Everyone talked about 2024 being the podcast election. It was for the GOP. I don't think it was for the Democrats. Not for Kamala Harris. I mean, she did. I can't remember that famous podcast.
Call Her Daddy.
That's it.
Yeah.
Which apparently they built a set for with a massive amount of money. I just read about that recently. But you know, Trump did do a bunch of crazy far right podcasts and comedy podcasts. A lot of those podcasters now having buyer's remorse, but he did do that. 28's going to be that on steroids, do we think?
I think so, because I think podcasts, I mean, this is just mainstream now, right? This the edge of media. It's not some fringe thing.
As you said, everyone watches it. Staffers, people in government.
Yes, absolutely. And every age group and every demographic and every class. I mean, everything. And especially, I think part of what's happened on the Democratic side and why your departure from MS now at this point came at the perfect moment is that there's also been a real loss of faith in a lot of liberal institutions.
Yes.
So Republicans have long had antipathy towards the quote unquote mainstream media.
But Democrats backed it up.
But Democrats for a long time, like they were all in on the Washington Post and the New York Times and MSNBC throughout the first Trump era.
So true.
And this is very different now.
Exactly.
They feel betrayed in a lot of ways by those outlets that they previously.
The people who hate the New York Times most right now are not conservatives.
Liberals.
It's liberals saying, why the hell are you saying Washington Trump? Which the Times is.
Or the Washington Post. Exactly. I mean, they've had a massive drop in subscriptions. It's a detriment to their business. Not that their billionaire owner, Jeff Bezos, cares.
Yeah, he doesn't care.
But because
Which
of
is
the way
what
that they
billionaires, these people who try to claim that billionaires are like extra special and that's how they are in the positions of power and wealth and fame that they're in. No, bitch. They were born into this. That is true about like 99.9% of the time. And they are not in this position because they're good with money or that they're particularly talented. It is because they have generational wealth and probably ancestral willingness to exploit human beings. So there's that. But we see how when they take over these institutions, these different businesses, that they end up firing tons of people because they think it's about efficiency to cut people's salaries and then siphon those salaries to enrich themselves and make it so that productivity is bad because people are depressed having to work at a place like this so that they can have an excuse to lay off more people, that quality goes down with every sort of product because they want to do things as cheap as possible rather than having any sort of pride and self-respect in the work that they do. So this is what happens with corporate greed, billionaire interests that have really no sort of loyalty to anyone or anything besides apparently like the Epstein files and money. That's really what it comes down to. Wealth, power, fame, Golden Roger had all of that and much more. Yes, exactly.
As well. So that has pushed a lot more just sort of normie liberals of all ages off of those and into, podcasts, YouTube,
But what do
etc.
you think about people who will say, okay, fine, they're going to podcasts. I'm not going to say names because I don't want to pick on people right now in the liberal, but they're going to safe spaces.
Yeah.
They're not going to come. Alyssa Slotkin's not going to come back on your show because she got such a rough ride. This was always a debate, right? I'm someone who does tough interviews.
Right.
And the people would say to me, why don't more people do it? And I said, because of access, right? Access to the reason the Sunday shows don't grill Lindsey Graham is because they want Lindsey Graham to come back again.
Right.
So they don't give him a hard time. That's one of the reasons. There's many reasons, but that's one reason. How much do you feel that pressure? I know I feel that pressure. I still do what I got to do. But, you and me and Jennifer Welch, who sat in that chair very recently, who's grilled Cory Booker and grilled a bunch of other Democrats. Is there a danger, though, that the Democrats say, yeah, we're going to do podcasts, but we're going to do safe spaces like the Republicans do. We're not going to do the...
Of course. Yeah, I mean, they already, we just talked about how Gavin Newsom, he will go, I want to give him credit. He went on, he's gotten some tough questions in some places, but clearly.
He did Van Lathan, I think he did a good job pushing.
He did a great job, yeah. But clearly there's like a line, he'll do ones that he'll get some, but he's picking and choosing.
No, I have great faith that Gavin Newsom will be coming on the show. So I have great
and
faith.
Mine too, inshallah.
And he has right-wing people on his show, interestingly. He's happy to have people on his show. So that is
But here's what I would say, though, is that the candidates who do subject themselves to those more difficult spaces, whether it's on the left or the right, by the way, like the guys who are willing to go on Fox News, who are willing to go on, on Sean Ryan or some of the more like right-wing coded podcasts, they are going to have so many more reps and be so much better in debates. They are not going to be caught flat-footed. Yep. This is part of the thing with Kamala is like, yes, she was not great in these interview settings, but also she wasn't great in those interview settings because she didn't subject herself to those interview settings so she could get better at it. I mean, as you know.
Yeah,
Although the Rogan,
that's a
if
good
she
point.
hadn't done it would have been
Oh, it would have been absolutely, but that's because she has not,
But also
over the
life,
course of her
career,
career,
exactly.
put in the
Like
reps
a lot of Democrats.
to be prepared. Because I mean, I remember my first time doing like a cable news interview. I was a deer in headlights. I could barely talk. I was terrified. Right. This is something that you, like anything else, get better at over time. So if you're someone who is thinking of running for president, the best thing you can do to prepare yourself so you're not caught off guard by some question you didn't expect is to go in places where you're going to be challenged and where it's going to be uncomfortable. That's the way that you grow.
On that basis, Ro Khanna's got it locked down in 28 because he's everywhere.
He is
I can't
everywhere.
switch on any kind of TV outlet, podcast
True.
outlet that he's not there. He's dedicated.
No, and I think that has been important. He has been listening to a lot of the criticisms, Representative Ro Khanna. I think he is much more ambitious than what people are expecting. He has led the charge with the Epstein files, with the Epstein Files Transparency Act, how he co-sponsored that with Thomas Massie, that he helped co-sponsor this Venezuela war powers resolution, the war powers resolution for Iran. And of course, this keeps getting voted down by both parties, primarily the Republicans, but also Democrats, warmongering Democrats who want to pretend like they're against war and imperialist aggression, but are, you know, just as complicit with their involvement in the industrial war complex. So we need to keep that in mind as well. Microsoft, who has Xbox, asked it to make more and more profit. The only problem is that it was so hard to keep doing that much that they're firing people, so they reach that. But it only helps Xbox to hit that point on that 1 month, and overtime is destroying it. No, you're good. No need to apologize. Yeah, where things deteriorate over time because it's all about the bottom line. It's not about quality. And this leads to a deterioration in every form of excellence that used to exist. Like in my mind, when we have the capitalist class taking things over, they are only interested in one thing, and that is making as much money as possible. It is not about the consumer. It's not about user experience. It is just about how much money they can make.
Episode is sponsored by LED. As the Quit GPT movement continues to grow,
Tan
many of
just
you
nodding.
still need an AI tool for work or home, or in search of perhaps a more ethical, more sustainable, more private alternative. And for the first time ever, open source has given us an alternative to the Silicon Valley surveillance machine. We don't have to use Google. We don't have to use ChatGPT. We don't have to wonder where all of our sensitive AI searches and conversations are going. LED was built on the same encryption used by services like ProtonMail or Signal. No more worrying about what happens to your AI conversations after you delete them. Even Anthropic's Claude stores your deleted conversations for 30 days. LED gives you access to the
It was
power
a secret,
of
and
flagship-grade
gamers
AI,
weren't
powered by
happy and said that
100%
Xbox is
renewable
doing
energy in
that.
Finland, all without privileged tech
It
bro
is only
surveillance.
to exist.
Visit
Yeah, they like to do these things so that people
today.
don't notice.
It's free to try,
They
and
hope
their mission
that
plan starts at only
we
$5
don't
a
notice
month.
the
Let me ask you
exploitation,
about the right-wing
cutting
independent
corners.
media. We've talked about
But
some of ours.
people
Right
find
now,
out
there are these
eventually.
MAGA podcast
It's just a
wars
matter
going
of holding them
And I gotta
accountable,
say, I'm
right?
enjoying them as an observer, as an outsider.
We deserve this.
I mean, I've
honestly,
never
Mehdi.
seen it.
We
Right?
deserve this.
It's always Democrats in disarray. The left with the circular firing squad. The right's always message discipline. Everyone sticks together. They
Yep.
fall in line.
Yep.
Not this time. Explain to our viewers who have been spared.
Oh my God.
Just give us a summary to normies watching. What are the right-wing MAGA podcasts? What is going on right now?
Well, I mean,
It's big.
It is big. And so it would take a long time for me to give you all of the subplots. But I mean, the major fissure is around Israel. And I mean, the real question for many of these people is like, do we hate the Jews or the Muslims more, right? Like that's what many of them
sadly well put.
are really fighting over. I don't want to lump everybody in that
True, but
bucket,
many
but
of
that's
Yeah,
the
of
sort of flavor
course.
of a lot of it. And so
Of
the
course.
latest flare up,
Classic
you've got,
white
Tucker
Christian
and Candace, and
nationalist
Megyn Kelly
shit.
has now kind of joined that side because she can see this is the way the young base is going.
Yep.
And then you've got Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro. Actually, Piers Morgan has now jumped in and going after Ben Shapiro, and they're fighting. The latest flare up has been Mark Levin has apparently been going after Megyn Kelly pretty relentlessly for a long time
Yeah,
because
he's got after me too. He's an awful person.
super Zionist, awful person, and
Was a never Trumper, by the way.
Which
Always
is-
should remind people, and these Trump acolytes, they used to hate Trump.
And that's true of a lot of the people who are his biggest fans. I mean, Ben Shapiro was not a
Yep,
Trump guy,
agreed.
right? So in any case, he's been going after her and these very, vicious and ugly, calling her like, a groper grandma and stuff like that. So finally he sent out some tweet that she responded to and was like, micro penis Mark Levin is, coming after me again. And this launched a whole new round of this war. And it's been kind of interesting to watch.
Oh, I knew I was gonna like finding out about this. Yes, I love to see them fight. Just Megyn Kelly calling some other fascist a name, just saying that he's a micro penis. It's great to see them fight because it's good to see how their coalition is breaking apart, but we just need some wins. We need some wins, and this is good for us to see that they are in disarray and that there is a clear sign showing how all of the policies that are being pursued by this administration are deeply unpopular with the base. And so we're seeing these influencer types react to this shift in the base because of the unpopular policies. And they are also at war with their own bigotry in who they are wanting to demonize more.
Preparation for this conversation, I listened to her
Just
full
a clown
response. I watched
show.
some other right-wing media and how they're responding to it, etc. And there are a lot of people who are like, how dare she? That's so vulgar. It's so inappropriate. I'm like, in the era of
I
Trump,
know.
I mean,
What Trump said about her.
Right, exactly. That's absolutely a great point. And think about remember in the 2016 primary, they were comparing dick sizes.
They
Like
were.
this
It was-
is nothing new.
It was Marco Rubio. What happened to him? He was not a fan of Trump
yeah.
either. What happened to him? I don't know where he ended up.
Interesting. But so in any case, they found this over the line. And of course, it's very like misogynistic. And she kind of hints at that in her response of, you guys had no problem with Mark when he was saying all this stuff. And
Yeah.
now suddenly I respond and you've got the issue. But
What's funny is that Megyn Kelly used to love Mark Levin.
Yes,
So it's all
she
this-
did.
That's
Yes.
what I love about this. So for me, two memes.
Also, it's so funny to see these fascist MAGA women be like, you don't treat women right. The right has a problem with women. Yeah, bitch. This is what we've been saying for a very long time. Why do you think they took away reproductive rights? This is a huge problem. And they sound like feminists when they're arguing a lot of the time because they're like, no, like you need to respect women and you need to listen to me. It's like the fact that you are a woman with a career is something that these people do not want. That no matter what you say, they will not think that you have a valid place. So you just have to confront that. There's so much ad personam arguments. Yeah, like ad hominem stuff of just like calling people names and not actually engaging with the substance of the argument.
Mind. Two gifs come to mind when I'm watching. One is the Jon Stewart eating popcorn meme. Like, that's me. I'm like, this is amazing. When I see the latest, I go to check. And the other one is the Ken Watanabe Godzilla versus King Kong one, which is let them fight.
Oh, yeah.
Right? For people, I do a lot of public speaking and events, and audiences always like, what do you think about Tucker versus Ted Cruz? What do you think? And I'm like, as an outsider, I love it. I mean, I'm not, we'll come to Tucker in a moment, but for me, it's kind of like, I don't need to be involved. I don't need to take a side or, endorse one tweet over another, but I love watching it.
Absolutely.
As you said, we deserve this.
Well, and here's the thing is, to zoom out from the micro penis conversation to the macro.
The big picture.
The macro conversation.
The macro penis.
This is a sign that everybody knows the Trump era is coming coming to an end one way or another. He's incredibly unpopular. They're going to get destroyed in the midterms if they're free and fair remotely at all. They can see the writing on the wall, and they can also see that, you know, especially with an online young right, the direction they're going in
very dark
yeah,
direction
it
in
is
some
a very
ways.
dark direction in many ways. They are, you know, they're very groiper pilled. So they're sort of reading the room of how this thing is coming apart. And in the same way that after Bernie lost in 2020, there was a lot of like left liberal, left on left fighting and squabbling and drama, et cetera. They're kind of in that moment now where Trump is betrayed, you know, some of his promises. I would say it was all very foreseeable, but they, you know, there is an element that feels very betrayed. There is a sense of who's going to take the reins next. What is that direction going to look like? And so all of these personal grievances also that were underneath the surface, those are coming up too, which is why I say like partly it's about Israel and like Jews versus Muslims. Partly it's just these like incredibly petty, personal, vicious beefs.
That's such a great segue to I wanted to bring up Candace Owens.
Okay.
Wherever I go, people talk to me about Candace Owens, right? And she's becoming increasingly popular, but also increasingly extreme. I mean, she's literally being sued by the president of France because she's obsessed with trying to say that the first lady of France is a man. These are the interesting causes she makes, aside from Israel. The personal grievance is so fascinating because Ben Shapiro loathes her. He completely goes after her. He's the guy who hired her. He's the guy who gave her a platform. The guy was so anti-Semites, but only really about Israel.
Content
she was pretty similar views when he hired her, and he didn't have a problem then. And he platformed her for years when she was saying anti-Semitic things.
Of course.
You mean like in current events or like media or news?
And that was TPUSA when she was with Charlie Kirk, exactly. But Ben Shapiro had fine with her at Daily Wire. But now, as you said, they can't keep their discipline. It's so interesting to see these powerful enforcers unable in the world of social media to just shut things down. I want to play a clip, hilarious clip from the Daily Wire of Ben and Michael Knowles, who's one of his top hosts. Let's play that clip.
Well, Michael, I'll just ask you straight up. Is Candace Owens doing something evil by attacking Erica Kirk?
I think that it's wrong to attack Erica Kirk.
No, say the sentence with her name in it.
I'm not going to dance like a puppet for the podcast force.
So good.
The girls are fighting.
Not just the girls are fighting, just for context, for those of you who are
now you need to say that what Candace Owens is doing is evil to Erica Kirk. You must say it. No, you must say the sentence.
It's actually false. French president isn't suing anyone. I thought the so Macron and his wife that they were suing Candace Owens because Candace keeps calling his wife a man, which is deeply transphobic. And so it is to perpetuate transphobia. That's like why it's so harmful, but she doesn't like being called a man and is suing, apparently. I don't know if you know more on that situation. Okay, so I ran out of purple for this bracelet. I need to get more thread to do a proper, more like intersex colors. Dee-dee. So this is very tiny, like a ring, I guess. I don't know. I tried something. I made something. It's very small. His wife is for spreading misinformation and influencing politics. I have heard that. I think he in general just seems to be pretty spineless. And I wish he had as much fury that, you know, he has had towards Trump, which still isn't even enough, that he would have that also towards Netanyahu.
Wire is. Ben Shapiro is the founder, editor-in-chief, whatever you want to call it, emeritus of Daily Wire. Michael Knowles is technically his employee.
Right.
And Michael Knowles said, I'm not going to say what you want me to say because I'm scared.
Knowles is friends with Candace and Candace's husband.
And he doesn't want a backlash.
And he wants to, you know, make Ben happy, but he doesn't want to piss her off. And she is very powerful. I mean, in terms of her media platform.
People are scared.
Absolutely.
Donald Trump is scared, Krystal. He put out a statement praising Mark Levin at the weekend, which is hilarious, right? The guy is running a war that is a disaster. He's bombing the crap out of the Middle East, and he has time to do a long Truth Social post praising Mark Levin, stepping into... And my favorite part of the post, he says, Some others have been attacking Mark Levin. Even Donald Trump couldn't bring himself to say Tucker Carlson's name or Megyn Kelly's name. Even he's a little scared.
Well, and here's what I love about that whole dynamic is Mark Levin got accused of having a micro penis, and his response was to run to daddy and be like, please tell them I don't. Please
help me.
Rescue me. Help me. Yeah, so it's just pathetic all the way around.
Liking this video? Then don't just watch. Hit like, share, and subscribe. And tap the bell so you never miss a video or live show. But if you want early access to exclusive
Fascist
content, then
acting
you have to head to
pathetic?
zeteo.com and subscribe now. You'll be supporting fearless, independent journalism.
And then we've got to talk
People
about
who are
Tucker
so
Carlson before we
scared
move
of
on to the
everything and
Tucker Carlson has
everyone.
become this phenomenon. Wherever I go now, people on the left, people in the Muslim community can't say, when are you going to have Tucker Carlson on the show? What are you going to do with Tucker Carlson? What do you think of People are obsessed with him. I get asked about Tucker Carlson more than I get asked about my wife and kids these days when I'm out and about. A, how did he get this big? And B, what do you make of this Tucker Carlson network? We're speaking on a day when later today, we're taping this show on the same day, I believe, Joe Kent, who just quit as director of counterterrorism over Iran from the Trump administration, doing his first interview with Tucker Carlson, not Fox. In the old days, it would have been Fox Primetime. Obviously, Fox is not sympathetic to his views, but Tucker is now a phenomenon. What do you make of his, I don't want to call it journey, change, stance?
I mean, I think it's all about the platform that he's on. Right now, he's not with the audience of Fox and in those particular constraints. So there's a different audience to be gained online. And so that's what he's increasingly courting and cultivating.
There's that one meme of Macron in international politics versus
a whole lot of
national
reasons,
politics.
But one of them being
where
that
he's in the
even
sunglasses.
Though, like Ted Cruz, for example, I'm sure knew that it was going to be contentious with him and Tucker. Tucker is so undeniable because he's so large that they still feel the need to go on.
Yes.
They still feel like they have to do it.
In fact, Huckabee went on after watching what he did to Tucker.
Yes.
To Cruz, excuse me.
Yes, to Cruz. And Scott, destroyed and revealed something very important, which is why the relationship, I think between the left and those of us who are, pro-Palestine and, and anti-Zionist, the relationship between the left and Tucker is very complicated because you see the interview with Ted Cruz and you're like, thank you.
Yeah.
One person hold this, evil man to account and to expose him. And same thing with Mike Huckabee. On the other hand, of course, many of his views are disgusting and abhorrent. And when
he didn't hold Nick Fuentes to account or Vladimir Putin to account.
Yes.
Yes,
exactly right. And, at the end of the day, for
Selective.
me, my worldview, and I know your worldview is centered around the view that all human beings are equal, that we all deserve equal rights, that we all deserve equal dignity and respect. And I abhor racism, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, like all of that bigotry. And he does not share that view.
He's a Christian nationalist. I don't think
he's a Christian nationalist. Yeah, that's it. And right now he's playing a particular game that I see not just him, Joe Kent, you mentioned, did the same thing in his letter, where they are very comfortable saying Israel, Israel, it's all Israel's fault. And let me be very clear.
Yeah,
Israel
not the
has
US.
been wanting this war with Iran for at least 40 years. Netanyahu bragged about this is my 40-year fantasy, right? There is no doubt. They were in the corridors of power here in D.C., whispering in Trump's ear and trying to persuade him to do this. But at the end of the day, this is Donald Trump's war. He is not some little sacrificial lamb. He's not a baby. He's not a toddler. He is the most powerful man on the planet.
A bit of a toddler, but yes,
he is not a victim of happenstance here.
No.
The blame falls on his shoulders. And so what Tucker's game is to just talk about Israel. He might have a guest on, like he had Sagar on. Sagar's happy to criticize Trump. He might have a guest on that will do that.
Tucker never does.
But not him. And for a while,
yeah, but when he's doing some international thing, he looks strong and charismatic.
That's it, right? That's it. He wants to have his cake and eat it too.
I'm so glad you're saying this because I have these conversations. I can't get away from Tucker conversation.
Just in general, and this is the unfortunate thing that happens with empire when there are empires in the world, that the rest of the world kind of follows suit in terms of their politics. And because the US has become more fascist in a lot of ways and it is dictating foreign policy, it makes it so there are leaders that feel like they can move to the right. And I think Macron has done that a lot with his policies, where he's like, actually, I think the Trump playbook is okay as long as I'm using it. That's kind of been my impression of him. Excuse me. These are the colors that I'm doing. It's like this honey brown. It's like golden, like a salmon color and a lavender. Ooh. But something about Tucker Carlson is that he has always been a white Christian nationalist. He has not been shy about his views, and it is very dangerous that he has the amount of power that he does. It is indicative of the media ecosystem and the liberal media outlets, the corporate media outlets failing people and people turning to other types of media to get information. And also for this pressure valve for the negative feelings against the Israeli government, that people are now thinking that that he is a great voice to be speaking out for Palestinians. It's like, I mean, we need more people speaking out for Palestinians, but he also is deeply anti-Semitic. So that is something that we have to call out, where he probably is along the lines of more of these like Zionist preppers who doesn't really care about what happens to Jewish people in the state of Israel. He is openly anti-Semitic, though, and his voice is gaining traction with a lot of people on the right because they are not seeing the kinds of policy and promises that they were hoping for from this Trump administration be fulfilled. Macron doesn't have a lot of decisions to make. But yes, Europe have been since 2022, I think, putting more and more right political parties in the head of state. Yeah, I think for a while, you know, things have been moving to the right, and that's not good because we already are in a liberal global arena as it is. But then when we have people who are putting their thumb on the scale for these elitist people who already are able to get away with so many things, that the rest of us become more and more impoverished and more exploited and discriminated against so that they can enrich themselves. He's still quite in the center of the political scale. Yeah. I mean, I think in my mind he's center right to me. But I think you're right that that's what most people think. Being too much to the left isn't much better. I mean, the thing with being to the left is that if you have systems that are set up so that power is distributed, that it doesn't get to a place that those kinds of policies can be exploited by bad actors. It's like, I would rather have, you know, like a try at communist policies than I would at fascist policies, because that's what we're living under right now. And there are examples of communist policies working, socialist policies working as well. It's when you have these bad actors that come in and take power for themselves and also sell out to these private interests, corporate interests. That would mean the end of, I'm guessing you're meaning democracy? I don't think so. It's like, in practice, there have not been not great examples of communism, but there are also some good examples of it as well, of people actually using these policies as a way to do grassroots organizing. Yeah, I mean, it depends on how things are implemented and why, right?
Go on air, off air, people want to talk about it. And I try and make this point, and you also tweeted this point earlier this week, and I was so glad when I saw your tweet, because I was like, yes, Krystal's coming on the show this week. And now you've made that point so well. This idea that there's these two extremes right now in this city, in particular in DC, where there's people on the right, like, as you say, Tucker Carlson and Joe Kent and others, who are saying, this is all Israel. Israel duped us into war, manipulated us into war, tricked us into war. It's Netanyahu's war.
I think the more right-leaning you are, I mean, to be clear, no one is incorruptible, I don't
Ben
think.
Shapiro's or Jake Tapper's or whatever
No
people
politician is.
This is
and it's
anti-Semitic
foolish
to, say
to
it's all
think
about
if they are.
Netanyahu. Trump is president. It's Trump's
If
decision.
they aren't,
Netanyahu's not
but-
part of it.
Right.
He clearly is.
I do think
you and I and people like us
fascism
need to be able to
lends
walk and chew
itself
gum
more
at the same
to
time
Yes.
and say, obviously,
corruption.
this war would not happen without Benjamin Netanyahu.
It's easier.
And this is the point Ben Rhodes, of all people, made to me, a former deputy national
You just
security
have to
advisor
have
last week.
capital.
He said, are we saying there would be a war without Netanyahu? No. Netanyahu is a key player, but Trump is also a key player. And why won't Tucker Carlson and others call out Donald Trump?
And we know the
And-
reason for that. I mean, because they want to stay in good graces
Yes.
with his base, and it is a cult. And if you cross daddy, then they're afraid that they'll
He's
lose
already
audience.
attacking him. Tucker hasn't attacked Trump, and Trump's already attacking Tucker.
That's right. And I think it's very possible Tucker does want to run for president. And he knows the
Yeah, I
history
think so
of
too.
people who
That
have
would be very
directly gone after
dangerous,
Trump. I
by
mean,
the
Thomas
way.
Massie also was getting, pushed to the sidelines in a primary funded against him, and Marjorie Taylor Greene. So, and then you could go back to like the Liz Cheneys or the Adam Kinzingers. Like, there is a long list of Republicans who have tried to directly challenge and confront Trump, who are now irrelevant to the party. So he wants to try to preserve that standing and walk this dance. Now, what his defenders will say is, no, he wants to maintain his access so he can make this case. And I may have sympathy for that case up to
I
a
don't
point,
think Trump is
but
corrupt.
now it's like, okay, you tried
Are you
that
being
mode,
sarcastic?
and
He's
you
called it.
failed. We're in the war. So, like,
Now you need to speak truth to power. That's what you believe.
Yes, and
I
I
hope
also
so.
get sick of the game playing. Like the
He's
4D
made
chess. Oh,
like
if we do this,
most
they'll
of
do
his
that.
fortune
Sometimes
while
you just
he's
have to tell
been
the truth, and that
in
is
office.
what the most powerful thing is that you can do in the
Exactly.
moment.
Okay,
I mean,
you are
watching
being
him on
sarcastic.
Piers Morgan recently,
He's
Tucker
of course
Carlson was on
not
Piers
in the
Morgan recently.
Epstein files.
Actually, I think we have a clip. Let's play it quickly.
Exactly.
I don't want to attack Ben Shapiro. Other than to say, like, that guy went to Harvard. Ben Shapiro was all about the money and about the clicks.
He
And Ben
hasn't
Shapiro
bankrupted
and a lot of these people are saying it
numerous
out loud. We need to
businesses.
penalize anti-Semites with the law. What does that even mean?
Doesn't have a track record of historical abuse.
Yeah, exactly. I ended my own monologue response to him by saying those exact words, which probably triggered his little pussy bitch outburst today, as he's called them.
Pissy bitch outburst. These are the MAGA wars, the podcast wars. Tucker Carlson, by the way, if he does run for president, he's got message discipline there. He came to attack Ben Shapiro. He had his
and he
talking
did
points. When I watch Tucker,
Yeah,
I think
Tucker
of that
does
other
have
meme, the clickhole
message
meme
discipline,
of the
and
worst
he's
person
a-
in the world just made a
he
great
knows
point.
how to message
I always-
to
I
this
was like-
audience.
I'm
They
always
respond
like,
to
yes,
him,
that's a great
for
point,
better or
Mr.
worse.
Carlson. Can
I mean,
and now Megyn
for
Kelly's in
worse,
that group.
clearly.
Megyn Kelly has come after me. I can't stand some of the stuff she's said and done over the years, but right now, when she's calling out Levin, you're like, all right, I'll take it.
Yeah, Trump is
So let's talk
corrupt.
about the big picture. Obviously, these guys
Okay,
are saying Fisher is over
I'm glad we
Israel, Iran is,
clarified.
causing a bigger fissure. I should point out that some of this is overstated. It's podcasters, sure, but the MAGA base is still with Trump. The vast majority of them. They haven't ditched him and said you betrayed us. A few
and
have.
it's such an important point because that gets overstated.
We always
all
say
the
the
time.
MAGA split on this, and it's not quite. I mean, there is a split, but the vast majority of Trump voters, because they're in a cult, still support him. But the rest of the country, thankfully, including independents, have clearly turned on Israel, and they were against this war from the beginning. They haven't switched.
Have you
Are
heard of Chuck
surprised
Norris?
with how
Of course
anti-war
I
and
have.
anti-Israel
He
American
passed
public opinion
away,
is?
apparently.
Shocking. I mean, it's shocking.
To be
Having
honest,
obviously followed
I don't know if
covered
I've
the
seen
space
any
for
Chuck
many
Norris
years.
movies.
Like it is obvious that this is where people should be, especially after watching,
Guess
multiple
I should
years of
watch
genocide
some.
unfolding in their feed. But just to know where we were a short time ago and the lockstep support that Israel enjoyed in a bipartisan manner, and to see now on the Democratic side.
Yes.
I mean, we just had these primaries in Illinois, which were kind of a mixed bag. But the most telling part to me is AIPAC did not want their name on the ads.
Yep.
There were no ads
They
about
created fake new organizations.
fake new PACs funneling money in through their donors, so they weren't associated with it. They know they are completely toxic in a Democratic primary. They know that. And so that
he
is
didn't.
such a sea change. And I think it's very important too for the way Israel is thinking
That's what I
about
thought.
this moment
Oh,
for
he went to
them
kill
as
someone.
a nation and the Iran war. They know that the politics in the U.S. have changed irrevocably.
Yeah, I've seen
And
people
if there is
say
a
like
Democratic
he didn't
president
die.
in 2028, they're not going to get the same carte blanche because I do believe in the
Death
Democratic
came
primary.
for
This
him.
will be a major,
Or he
major
came
litmus
for
test.
death.
Isn't
I
the
don't
worry,
know.
though,
I'm fucking it
that-
up.
I don't want to be the cynical guy here, but isn't the worry, though, that in a
Back
Democratic
on
primary,
Wednesday.
and we're seeing this already, you will have mainstream
Okay,
candidates
good to know. The
saying
second coming.
what needs to be said. They'll talk the talk.
It's happening.
But once they're in office, will they actually dare talk about conditioning aid? Will they actually say, will a President Newsom say apartheid? Governor Newsom said it in passing at a Pod Save America
And
live
then
event.
immediately walked it back.
Will President Newsom say, and similarly, Governor Shapiro is a different issue because we know he's much more pro-Israel anyways. But some of these candidates like Pete Buttigieg, for example, who've been kind of slightly adjusting their views per podcast on Israel-Palestine. Is the public going to see through those people who genuinely believe this stuff? A Ro Khanna, a Chris Van Hollen, an AOC, obviously, versus people who might not be, who might just be seeing the internal polling and know that they can't be as pro-Israel as ever. But once they're in office, all bets are off.
I am cautiously hopeful.
Okay, good.
Although I certainly understand and respect your cynicism. And here's what I would say is oftentimes that extreme pro-Israel sentiment comes with also just an overall alignment with the donor class on a variety of issues. And you see this with Gavin Newsom, right? He's really trying to find that, how do I massage this? He knows he's got a problem because you've got donors here, you got the base over here. He's trying to find out where to be. And, on something like funding a genocide, there just is no middle ground massaging message point, talking point place to land. So over time, that is going to reveal itself not only on that, but, another issue for him is he's fighting against this billionaire wealth tax in California.
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous.
The Democratic base is not putting...
I know there was some drama a little bit ago about Governor Newsom. It wasn't even that drama, but about Governor Governor Newsom. Okay, that's what I'm gonna call him now. Governor Newsom, possibly being president if people would vote for him, and it's like we should be able to do better than Governor Newsom because he clearly is sold out to these corporate interests, these billionaire interests. He is resisting a billionaire tax. He was willing to engage in, the gerrymandering efforts that the Republicans were getting involved in, but he is refusing to have any sort of leftist people or left-leaning people even on his podcast, or especially like consulting him, or he's consulting with, advising him, and that he is constantly backpedaling his views dependent on how they are received, rather than him having a backbone and actually advocating for things he believes in. He does the standard establishment Democrat of just waiting for feedback before he changes a position on something. So we don't need him in the halls of power anymore.
This crap anymore. They're disgusted with Chuck
Chuck
Schumer.
Norris
They're
made
disgusted with
Trump
Democratic
tax
leadership.
himself.
They're disgusted with capitulation to
If
Trump.
only.
Now Newsom does a good, sort of show of resistance to Trump, and I think people really like that, and that's why he's a front runner. But I do believe, especially
the
based
record
on,
will catch up with him at some point.
I think so, and also because from what I've seen of his podcast appearances, he has already been exposed in certain ways. He hasn't shown himself to be as nimble as I honestly expected him to be in navigating some of these difficult issues.
You mentioned billionaire tax, and I can't think, but J.B. Pritzker is a literal billionaire. Do you think he's got a chance as a billionaire?
I don't think the fact that he's a billionaire is necessarily a problem for him, because everybody loves a good class traitor. I mean, they do. It was actually part of Trump's original appeal. He was like, "Look, I'm a billionaire. I understand what this system is."
Yeah, if he actually is a
issues,
class traitor,
that may emerge. I think he's also like pretty pro-Israel and according to the statements that I've seen of his, so that'll be an issue.
Our
for
good
him.
friend Jennifer Welch held him to account as well. Let me ask you this: Iran. So how much of Iran is going to be a role, not just Gaza in 2028? Because if you go back to 2008, we were 5 years out from the Iraq War. The surge had happened. Bush was on his way out, super unpopular. Hillary Clinton was about to be coronated in 2008.
Yeah.
And Obama comes along as this anti-war candidate.
Yep.
Dumb war. Iraq is a dumb war. He runs as an anti-war candidate. People try and rewrite history, but he ran as an anti-war candidate.
Yeah.
And that helped him win. Democrats didn't imagine that Iraq would feature because they'd already had 2004 and put up John Kerry and John Edwards, who were pro-war.
Yep.
They didn't think 2008 would come back and bite them in the arse. I wonder how many Democrats now are thinking, well, by 2028, this is all gone. It'll be an affordability. It'll be an inflation election. It'll be a change election. And actually, people like a Ro Khanna may still be insisting that Iran and Gaza is on the debate stage.
Oh, I absolutely think it could be a central issue because I don't think we're getting out of this war anytime soon. I mean, unfortunately, I think we're in this escalation trap cycle now. Just today we got the news that the U.S. and Israel struck this important oil field in Iran. Iran said, okay, all bets are off. We're going exactly. We're going after, all of the oil and gas facilities in the region, up the escalation chain. And even if Trump decides he's going to just declare mission accomplished and walk away, the Iranians get a say in that.
Yes.
And they have been broadcasting, no, we need you to pay. We want it to be an extreme price. And then you've also, the Israelis get a say too, apparently. So I don't think this is going to be a short war. And I've never understood, there's this talking point in American politics, I'm sure you've heard it, Mehdi, that's like, people don't vote on foreign policy. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
2008 was all about the Iraq war. That's
Yeah,
the whole reason,
exactly.
a major part of the reason Obama
Now
wins.
That's what I say. Of course people vote on foreign policy. It just depends on what the foreign policy is, how it's being messaged, how people are feeling it personally in their material conditions, because they certainly care when it impacts their material conditions, but even when it didn't, like with the genocide in Israel, people still cared because guess what? There are a large number of people that are against genocide. Wow. It's a great thing to have, but like our voices need to be listened to more. Oh, this is where your brain stops. Hey, thanks for being here. It was good seeing you.
Apparently is acknowledging in private that 2024 may have been about
That's right.
foreign policy.
And Trump, he came out very opportunistically in 2016 and was like,
See
I'm
you
against
soon.
the Iraq war. That was very important for him as well.
Yes.
And then he played that trick again.
In 24.
In
People fell for it in
and
places
people
like
fell
Michigan.
for it again. And here we are. But I was shocked. We did a focus group after Trump won of these AOC Trump voters to see okay, what is and a lot of people said, not just Gaza, but war and peace in general. It was central to a lot of people's thinking, not just because they have a moral objection, but they also feel like you're spending all this money on all these bombs and missiles and aircraft carriers and all this stuff. And I can't afford groceries. I can't afford gas. I can't afford rent. I can't aspire to home ownership. And so it becomes incredibly important. I don't think you can disentangle the domestic and
which is the MAGA anti-war line, right? There's this America first. Why are we spending money for those foreigners? They gutted USAID that was actually helping in some places like Sudan, Afghanistan, poor people. But we're spending $11 billion so far, and some predictions
Yeah,
could
exactly.
go up.
We always have
It's way
money
more than
to
that. I think the Penn-Wharton
bomb
budget study
people.
that they do, we reported on,
Specifically
my colleague Minna,
brown people,
$65 billion
especially if they
is the
are
price tag they put
Muslim.
on it so far, which could end homelessness and do all sorts of good things at home. The problem is Republicans, anti-war Republicans, the few that we have, are pushing that. Not many Democrats are. In fact, Democrats are like, should we fund the war? Some senators and members of Congress. I wish we had an opposition party that could say what you're saying, which could say what a lot of MAGA people are saying, which is, why are we wasting this money on foreign wars?
Yeah.
And they don't, unfortunately, because they're part of the military-industrial.
That's right.
They're getting money from the military-industrial complex. They fear that if you don't vote for a war, you'll be accused of being unpatriotic. That playbook's dead. Look at the polling. This is the first war of my lifetime where the American public have not fallen into line and given it majority support straight after it started.
Well,
exactly.
And it's also ideological.
Deeply unpopular.
I mean, Joe Biden, I think, I don't know how, functional his brain was, but I think he realized that Gaza was a political problem for him, but he was committed to that Zionist project, and he was willing to take some political pain. And
it makes
ultimately,
Harris's position so frustrating because she clearly wasn't committed to it, but still went along with it.
But they were, he was willing to take some political pain and even end up handing the White House back to Donald Trump in order to hold the line in favor of genocide. So some of it is ideological. I mean, you think of Chuck Schumer as a great example of
right
this.
now, Chuck Schumer is 100% in favor of this war.
Yes.
And the only reason he's not saying it publicly is because Donald Trump is
president. Because he knows it's unpopular with Democrats and
Yes.
Trump is
Exactly.
president. And here's what Ryan and Dropsite reported. reported. They
It's a
reported
problem.
exactly that.
It's a huge
that not
problem.
Just Schumer, but a lot of Democrats
Which
are
is
sort of
why
low-key
we
in favor
need
of the war,
a
but they
national
recognize it's
strike
probably a
in the
political
US,
liability for Trump.
and we need
So
a global
instead
strike.
of fighting against it,
Please check
they
out the
just
forms
stay
in the
quiet.
Twitch
And
profile.
that's what we see, isn't it? I mean, you don't hear many there are definitely some, but you do not hear Democratic leadership out there just relentlessly making the case on this
They're so bad
illegal,
at politics, Krystal.
awful war. Yeah.
They're just so bad. I want to kill myself sometimes. Yesterday when Joe Kent
They're
quit,
so bad
Joe
at
Kent
it.
is a far-right Republican. He is linked to white supremacist groups.
Which that
I'm not
shows
defending
you
Joe Kent.
how much of an
But the idea that the
outsized
first
power
reaction from
money has
Democrats,
on
and
our
of course Jared Moskowitz went straight on to
politics
CNN
and
Wolf Blitzer to talk about,
politicians.
is to say, well, he's an anti-Semite and his resignation has made it all about Israel. It's like, that can't be your first response. Your first response as a politician and opposition body is to say, hey, Donald Trump, your own counterterrorism director does not agree with your war. That is it. This is not rocket science. I mean, Ruben Geiger, who's quite a centrist politician in many ways, but quite populist in his rhetoric and approach to campaigning, he's come out and said, Donald Trump ran on exposing pedophiles and stopping wars. Instead, he's protecting pedophiles and starting wars. It's that simple. Say that, Democrats. It's not rocket science.
Yes,
just say
exactly.
But a lot of it is like our idea of what politics should be and their idea of how to practice politics are two very different things, because their idea
Clearly.
is like, let me save the
Clearly.
thing, keep me in the good graces with the donors who are going to fund my
lobbyists, yeah.
campaign and, entrench me in power. And because there's so much power of incumbency, it doesn't really matter. And I'm not going to debate my opponent, and we're in these gerrymandered districts.
Yes.
So that's how you end up with this shocking sense of where are you people and what are you doing? Well, they're playing the game as it's currently constructed and as has made sense for them throughout their careers.
Yeah, exactly.
No, you're the hopeful one in this conversation. So where do you see...
Yeah, exactly. Which is why we have to take back our power, because we know electoral politics do affect our material conditions, that we still have to engage in them as another branch of government, but that for our liberation from this system that is oppressive and inherently rotted to the core, that was based off of the displacement and genocide of Native people and the systemic discrimination and oppression of marginalized people, that we have to be building our own system outside of this, that we have to demand to have our needs met, that they will not continue appealing to the billionaire class, and that we will have our human dignity be achieved, and we have to do this through striking. There you go. Another plug.
The shards of light. We started off the conversation, as we wrap up, we started the conversation pointing out that you just won a podcast award. You got 1.9 million subscribers on YouTube. Senator Alyssa Slotkin's staff, before they were fired, put her on your show. Where the shards of light? Where are we turning things around? The super tanker.
I mean, I think the big hope for me is the distance between where the Democratic base is and where the Democratic electeds and leadership are is such a vast gulf. It simply can't be sustained.
It's not sustainable.
It is not sustainable. And the other piece that is very helpful to me, as we discussed earlier, is that some of that bedrock trust of the liberal media institutions that have been so important in manufacturing consent among the Democratic base, like we're in a different era for that as well. And that creates pitfalls, right? You rightly point out, there are, some podcasts that are still going to kind of be in that model. And just because you're quote unquote independent media doesn't actually mean you're independent from corporate influence, et cetera. That's important to keep in mind. But it creates an opening. It creates a possibility. And I think we've seen the way that liberals have come to our politics. I mean, it's no longer an uphill battle to make the case on any of the core things that we believe in, from, Israel and human rights and, high wages and Medicare for all. And all of those things are just like the overwhelmingly popular position in the Democratic Party. So
you're seeing that,
those are the places where I'm
across
hopeful.
the board. I mean, as I said, we had Jennifer Welch here, and she talked about having just been a kind of unthinking liberal who cared only about abortion rights. And then she started looking into things like Palestine and other things and corporate money. money. And she's like, oh, this is infuriating. Even the Pod Save folks, they've been very strong on Iran and Israel recently. John Favreau and others have been calling out the Jonathan Greenblatts of this world who try and weaponize anti-Semitism and shut it down.
So
There is mainstream on the
That's
liberal side.
surprising.
They literally now syndicate content to MS Now.
Yeah.
So,
I'm surprised
crooked
that
media is an interesting
the
example
Pod
of
Save
people who are
America
willing to
people
talk now
are
in
coming
populist
out
tones,
against
willing
Israel
to call
more.
out Israel, etc., etc.
It's just becoming undeniable,
Changing. The problem
even
is
for
we've still got
mainstream
AIPAC throwing
audiences.
loads of money into races. They still did block people like former Zateo contributor Kat Abu-Ghazala and others in Illinois this week. So it is quite a tough battle with the money involved.
Well, and they're getting more clever. They're coming up with new strategies to wash their, so people don't get the AIPAC stink associated with them since they become this toxic brand. So we are going to have to adjust tactics as well. But I will say, there's a big distinction between a congressional race, where having run for the House myself, and a presidential race. Just the level of attention that people pay, the amount of scrutiny. It's
She's
just
run for the
completely
House?
different level.
I didn't know
and even
that.
at the congressional level, I mean, Daniel Biss, who won that race, he would have been considered sort of like on the fringe of opinion with regard to Israel and Palestine.
He's a J Street guy.
Not long ago. I mean, he's sort of like a Brad
Liberal
Lander.
Vance.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I think Brad's better than Daniel.
You think
but
Brad is more
better than Daniel Biss? Yes, I think. But yes, I know what you mean.
Yes. Exactly, like an Andy Levin, like someone in sort of that mold. So in any case, things have already shifted there, and I think in a presidential race with the debates, with all the scrutiny that comes, you will have more of an ability of the base to really assess these people and whether they just talk a good game on Twitter or whether they're going to, not just on Israel, but across the board, buck the capitalist class and the donor class. I mean, the other thing we didn't talk about but has been a major focus for me is AI, which I think is an apocalyptic disaster. This has to be another litmus test. Is existential for literally civilization.
100%
Yes,
agree.
I agree.
Sadly, a conversation for another day, but yes.
AI needs
and
to
the
be
role of the
destroyed.
AI lobby, in fact, in protecting them from regulation and screwing us over. How are we going to have free and fair elections if we don't know what's true? I mean, that's a separate issue.
Yeah.
Talking of elections, last question, 2028. Yes. I don't want to do predictions, but just more desires as a journalist, commentator, YouTuber. Who do you want to see on the either? Do you want to see like a Tucker Carlson versus AOC race?
I do not want Tucker Carlson to run because I think he's much more formidable than a JD Vance or a Marco Rubio.
It is a bubble.
AOC would probably trounce JD Vance.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I do think.
Where is JD Vance?
He's
gone to ground.
You know what?
Coward.
He's out there still blaming Joe Biden for gas prices, and I'm not even kidding. But, I think that there is a decent possibility after this horrific war and economic calamity and all the horror of ICE and all of the things that are happening right now, I do think there's a possibility the Republican Party is just such a destroyed project that even someone like a Tucker Carlson, who I think is, talented and has given himself some plausible deniability on these things, I think there's a possible that even for someone like that, it's just not retrievable. Like,
also,
it's not savable.
I suspect the Republican establishment would try and crush him in the same way they tried to crush and failed Trump in 2016.
Yeah.
But they might work against a Tucker.
Maybe.
I can imagine them, the causes they care about being so dear to them.
Maybe, but business is not afraid of fascism, as you know.
That's true.
So, yes, they tried to crush Trump, but there's a reason they were successful with Bernie and not
No, but
with...
if Tucker was just running on a Christian nationalist authoritarian platform, as you say, business has no problem with that.
Yeah.
But if he's running on an anti-war, anti-Israel platform, we know that the powers that be in military-industrial complex and pro-Israel lobby and even some Christian evangelicals will not want that. We saw that in the UK with Jeremy Corbyn very clearly. I'm fascinated. I don't know who the candidates will be. I don't do predictions anymore because you can't predict anything in this crazy world. It's as people who are in independent media, I think it'll be fascinating to see how we cover the race versus what dying cable news does.
Well, one prediction I will make is it will definitely be interesting. That's no doubt about that.
This is all based on the assumption we even have an election in 2028, which I'm still not convinced about, sadly.
Fair enough. Why are you going to end on such a downer, Mehdi?
No. There will be an election in 28.
Exactly.
And the people will win. Well, make sure you go to wherever you go
Because
to download and subscribe to your podcast. Go to Zateo.com to become a subscriber, ideally a paid subscriber, support independent media.
Like I've said, we need to be thinking about what happens
as soon as they drop.
when,
Make sure you go
if
to the Breaking Point YouTube channel
the
if you're
elections
not
are not free
already
and
subscribed
fair.
Thank you so
because
much for
this
coming
is a
on the
very
show.
real
It's been an absolute
possibility. What are
pleasure.
we going to do
I'm
to
Mehdi
stop
Hasan.
that?
I'm Krystal Ball.
We were not kidding. We're Not Kidding is a Zateo production. I'm your host, Mehdi Hassan, and today's co-host was Krystal Ball. Our executive producer is Kieran Alvey. Our senior producer and editor is Frank Capello. Our music was composed by Andy Clausen. Our design is by Alicia Tatone. Our mix engineer is Valentino Rivera. And the title card animation is by Ehsan Mezghali. Special thanks to Leila Nefe for help with research.
Okay. So, it feels like the world is falling apart, and it kind of is. And if you are interested in taking your power back, sign on for a global strike. Class solidarity worldwide, does this sound like the ticket to you? To freedom? Because I think so. Okay. We do need a global strike, and we need to have very clear demands. So please fill out the form that I have in the profile. If you are interested to stop the proliferation of AI, these data centers, and from them stealing our jobs, our sense of reality, our humanity. Like, for the people in the Epstein class, I feel like they watched Stanley Kubrick movies and they were like, let's do this. Let's do this. They're like, let's make artificial intelligence, 2001: A Space Odyssey. Let's make an Epstein Island, just like Lolita preying on young women, on minors, on girls, children. Let's have secret sex parties, like in Eyes Wide Shut. It does make me wonder how much Stanley Kubrick knew about the Epstein class, about Epstein himself. But anyway, shall we get into the reading? I'm all ready with my gloves. Okay, so for the last chapter, we see Edgar Linton pass away. Kathy ended up marrying Linton, her cousin, because it's during the time of the Gothic art movement, and a theme that occurs quite often in this genre is incest. So there's that. And so she is officially married to Linton. We see that since Edgar passed away, that the property goes to Linton. And who controls Linton but Heathcliff? Heathcliff dismissed all of the servants. He's making Catherine live with him. So now it seems like we're getting closer in time to the time of the retelling that this story is occurring in. So when Nellie is talking to Mr. Lockwood, we're getting closer to the present time. Present for this period. Okay. The evening after the funeral, meaning Edgar's funeral, my young lady and I were seated in the library, now musing mournfully, one of us despairingly on our loss, now venturing conjectures as to the gloomy future. We had just agreed the best destiny which could await Catherine, which would be a permission to continue resident at the Grange, at least during Linton's life, he being allowed to join her there, and I to remain as housekeeper. That seemed rather too favorable an arrangement to be hoped for, and yet I did hope, and began to cheer up under the prospect of retaining my home and my employment, and above all, my beloved young mistress, when a servant, one of the discarded ones not yet departed, rushed hastily in and said, "That devil Heathcliff was coming through the court. Should he fasten the door in his face?" If we had been mad enough to order that proceeding, we had not time. He made no ceremony of knocking or announcing his name. He was master, and availed himself of the master's privilege to walk straight in without saying a word, since he owns the Grange now. The sound of our informant's voice directed him to the library. He entered, and motioning him out, shut the door. It was the same room into which he had been ushered as a guest 18 years before, The same moon shone through the window, and the same autumn landscape lay outside. So we see it's a cyclical nature of events. We also see how this time around Heathcliff is coming back and he owns the property. How he has completely shifted the power dynamic. How the original catalyst for the older Catherine going mad, for Heathcliff starting on this plot for revenge, was his return in this same room. So we'll see what kind of shift happens this time around. We had not yet lighted a candle, but all the apartment was visible, even to the portraits on the wall, the splendid head of Mrs. Linton and the graceful one of her husband. Heathcliff advanced to the hearth. Time had little altered his person either. There was the same man, his dark face, rather sallower and more composed, so again, talking about him in racialized language. His frame a stone or two heavier, perhaps, and no other difference. Catherine had risen with an impulse to dash out when she saw him. "Stop," he said, arresting her by the arm. "No more running away. Where would you go? I'm come to fetch you home, and I hope you'll be a dutiful daughter and not encourage my son to further disobedience. I was embarrassed how to punish him when I discovered his part in the business. He's such a cobweb, a pinch would annihilate him. But you'll see by his look that he has received his due. I brought him down one evening, the day before yesterday, and just sat him in a chair and never touched him afterwards. I sent Harriton out, and we had the room to ourselves. In 2 hours, I called Joseph to carry him up again, and since then my presence is as potent on his nerves as a ghost. And I fancy he sees me often, though I am not near. Harriton says he wakes and shrieks in the night by the hour together, and calls you to protect him from me. And whether you like your precious mate or not, you must come. He's your concern now. I yield all my interest in him to you." "Why not let Catherine continue here," I pleaded, "and send Master Linton to her? As you hate them both, you'd not miss them. They can only be a daily plague to your unnatural heart." It's like, you don't need to insult him while you're trying to, get something from him, but okay. "I'm seeking a tenant for the Grange," he answered, "and I want my children about me, to be sure. Besides, that lass owes me her services for her bread. I'm not going to nurture her in luxury and idleness after Linton is gone. Make haste, and get ready now, and don't oblige me to compel you." So one of the forms of revenge that Heathcliff takes primarily is degrading people in class, where he marries Isabella Linton and forces her to work, even though after she passes away, he gets a servant because he doesn't want to have to do the work himself. That there is this sexism and an emphasis in reinforcing the patriarchal hierarchy of class that exists at this time period, that is shown through the larger scale of British Empire and its impunity and violence and non-consensual domination. We also see how this element of race plays a role in the book that is largely ignored in most adaptations. In particular, this latest adaptation of Wuthering Heights, where Heathcliff has been further marginalized because of his race and because of his class, that he has even more motivation to get justice from a society that clearly is not just. But he is taking it out on children and these non-consenting entities, so we have to call into question the morality of it. "I shall," said Catherine. "Linton is all I have to love in the world, and though you have done what you could to make him hateful to me, and me to him, you cannot make us hate each other, and I defy you to hurt him when I am by, and I defy you to frighten me." "You are a boastful champion," replied Heathcliff, "but I don't like you well enough to hurt him. You shall get the full benefit of the torment as long as it lasts. It is not I who will make him hateful to you. It is his own sweet spirit. He's as bitter as gall." at your desertion and its consequences. Don't expect thanks for this noble devotion. I heard him draw a pleasant picture to Zillah of what he would do if he were as strong as I. The inclination is there, and his very weakness will sharpen his wits to find a substitute for strength. I know he has a bad nature, said Catherine. He's your son. But I'm glad I've a better to forgive it. And I know he loves me, and for that reason I love him. Mr. Heathcliff, you have nobody to love you. And however miserable you make us, we shall still have the revenge of thinking that your cruelty rises from your greater misery. You are miserable, are you not? Lonely like the devil and envious like him? Nobody loves you. Nobody will cry for you when you die. I wouldn't be you. Catherine spoke with a kind of dreary triumph. She seemed to have made up her mind to enter into the spirit of her future family, and draw pleasure from the griefs of her enemies. You shall be sorry to yourself presently, said her father-in-law, if you stand there another minute. Begone, witch, and get your things. She scornfully withdrew. In her absence, I began to beg for Zillah's place at the Heights, offering to resign her mine. But he would suffer it on no account. He bid me be silent, and then, for the first time, allowed himself a glance around the room and a look at the pictures. Having studied Mrs. Linton, he said, I shall have that at home. Not because I need it, but... He turned abruptly to the fire and continued, with what, for lack of a better word, I must call a smile. I'll tell you what I did yesterday. I got the sexton, who was digging Linton's grave, to remove the earth off her coffin lid, and I opened it. So he opened Catherine's coffin. Jesus. I thought once I would have stayed there when I saw her face again. It is hers yet. He had hard work to stir me, but he said it would change if the air blew on it. And so I struck one side of the coffin loose and covered it up. Not Linton's side, damn him. I wish he'd been soldered in lead. And I bribed the sexton to pull it away when I'm laid there, and slide mine out too. I'll have it made so, and then, by the time Linton gets to us, he'll not know which is which. Hi, buddy. I hear him meowing. Hi, bud. I see him standing outside. He's deciding what to do. Hi. He's coming. Hello, good sir. Welcome, welcome. Whoops. What you up to? This is the sassy going about the room after dinner. Okay, bye. Okay. Anyway. Okay, so he had Catherine be unburied, and he did not want her buried next to Edgar, her husband, because he wants to be buried next to her. So he's like having his revenge in death as well. You were very wicked, Mr. Heathcliff, I exclaimed. Were you not ashamed to disturb the dead? I disturbed nobody, Nellie, he replied, and I gave some ease to myself. I shall be a great deal more comfortable now, and you'll have a better chance of keeping me underground when I get there. Disturbed her? No. She has disturbed me, night and day, through 18 years, incessantly, remorselessly, till yesternight. And yesterday night I was tranquil. I dreamt I was sleeping the last night by that sleeper, with my heart stopped, and my cheek frozen against hers. And if she had been dissolved into the earth, or worse, what would you have dreamt of then? I said. Of dissolving with her, and being more happy still, he answered. Do you suppose I dread any change of that sort? I expected such a transformation on raising the lid, but I'm better pleased that it should not commence till I share it. Besides, unless I had received a distinct impression of her passionless features. That strange feeling would hardly have been removed. It began oddly. You know I was wild after she died, and eternally from dawn to dawn, praying her to return to me, her spirit. I have a strong faith in ghosts. I have a conviction that they can and do exist among us. The day she was buried, there came a fall of snow. In the evening, I went to the churchyard. It blew bleak as winter. All round was solitary. I didn't fear that her fool of a husband would wander up the den so late, and no one else had business to bring them there. Being all alone and conscious, 2 yards of loose earth was the sole barrier between us. I said to myself, I'll have her in my arms again. If she be cold, I'll think it is this north wind that chills me. If she be motionless, it is sleep. I got a spade from the tool house and began to delve with all my might. It scraped the coffin. I fell to work with my hands, so he had previously unburied her on his own. Some necrophilia shit. The wood commenced cracking about the screws. I was on the point of attaining my object when it seemed that I heard a sigh from someone above, close at the edge of the grave, and bending down. If I can only get this off, I muttered. I wish they may shovel in the earth over us both. I wrenched at it and more desperately still. There was another sigh, close at my ear. I appeared to feel the warm breath of it displacing the sleet-laden wind. I knew no living thing in flesh and blood was by, but certainly as you perceive the approach to some substantial body in the dark, though it cannot be discerned, so certainly I felt that Kathy was there, not under me, but on the earth. A sudden sense of relief flowed from my heart, through every limb. I relinquished my labor of agony, and turned consoled at once, unspeakably consoled. Her presence was with me. It remained while I refilled the grave and led me home. You may laugh if you will, but I was sure I should see her there. I was sure she was with me, and I could not help talking to her. Having reached the heights, I rushed eagerly to the door. It was fastened, and I remember that accursed Earnshaw and my wife opposed my entrance. I remember stopping to kick the breath out of him. Oh, so that's the night that Isabella ran away. And then hurrying up to my room and hers, I looked round impatiently. I felt her by me. I could almost see her, and yet I could not. I ought to have sweat blood then from the anguish of my yearning, like a Christ figure. Christ imagery. Coming back from the dead. From the fervor of my supplications to have but one glimpse, I had not one. She showed herself as she often was in life, a devil to me. And since then, sometimes more, sometimes less, I've been the sport of that intolerable torture. Infernal, keeping my nerves at such a stretch that, if they had not resembled catgut, they would, long ago, have relaxed to the feebleness of Linton's. When I sat in the house with Hareton, it seemed that on going out I should meet her. When I walked on the moors, I should meet her coming in. When I went from home, I hastened to return. She must be somewhere at the Heights, I was certain. And when I slept in her chamber, I was beaten out of that. I couldn't lie there. For the moment I closed my eyes, she was either outside the window, or sliding back the panels, or entering the room, or even resting her darling head on the same pillow as she did when a child. And I must open my lids to see. And so I opened and closed them 100 times a night. Okay, we have a footnote. Sleep brings no joy to me. Dated November 1837. What does that mean? Oh, there is a poem on the next page. This is the poem. Sleep brings no joy to me, remembrance never dies. My soul is given to misery and lives in sighs. Sleep brings no rest to me, the shadows of the dead, my waking eyes may never see, surround my bed. Sleep brings no hope to me, in soundest sleep they come, and with their doleful imagery deepen the gloom. Sleep brings no wish to knit my harassed heart beneath. My only wish is to forget in the sleep of death. By Emily Bronte. You know, a Gothic classic talking about death a lot. To be always disappointed. So back to Heathcliff talking. It racked me. I've often groaned aloud till that old rascal Joseph, no doubt, believed that my conscience was playing the fiend inside of me. Now since I've seen her, I'm pacified a little. It was a strange way of killing, not by inches, but by fractions of hairbreadths, to beguile me with the spectre of a hope through 18 years. Mr. Heathcliff paused and wiped his forehead. His hair clung to it, wet with perspiration. His eyes were fixed on the red embers of the fire, the brows not contracted, but raised next the temples, diminishing the grim aspect of his countenance, but imparting a peculiar look of trouble and a painful appearance of mental tension towards one absorbing subject. He only half addressed me, and I maintained silence. I didn't like to hear him talk. After a short period, he resumed his meditation on the picture, took it down, and leaned it against the sofa to contemplate it at better advantage, and while so occupied Catherine entered, announcing that she was ready when her pony should be saddled. So we also see Heathcliff having a belief in life, a hereafter, spirits of some sort, that they weren't very Christian growing up. They didn't really go to church. And so we don't know if he is drawing upon his heritage and spiritualism, or if he is going with this more Christian version of things. But it seems a way of kind of decolonizing this concept of death, where he's talking about life continuing, especially at the time when people were talking about ghosts, how that was viewed as very evil. So that's something to consider. I could have put that in a more articulate way, but there you go. Send that over tomorrow, said Heathcliff to me. Then turning to her, he added, You may do without your pony. It is a fine evening, and you'll need no ponies at Wuthering Heights. For what journeys you take, your feet will serve you. Come along. Goodbye, Ellen, whispered my dear little mistress. As she kissed me, her lips felt like ice. Come and see me, Ellen. Don't forget. Take care you do no such thing, Mrs. Dean, said her new father. When I wish to speak to you, I'll come here. I want none of your prying at my house. He signed her to precede him, and casting back a look that cut my heart, she obeyed. So he's also cutting her off from anyone else who could help empower her. I watched them from the window walk down the garden. Heathcliff fixed Catherine's arm under his, though she disputed the act first, evidently, and with rapid strides, he hurried her into the alley whose trees concealed them. Okay. That's the end of chapter 15. That's gonna be it for me today as well. Thank you for being here. It was good chatting with you all. I will be on tomorrow around 2:30. If we're honest, probably a little bit after that. I want to keep touching on some current events that have happened, but then also go over some organizing techniques. Yeah. So anyway, thanks for being here. I hope you have a good rest of your day, evening, wherever you are, and I will see you soon. Okay, bye.